Notre Dame fans, welcome back. It is Saturday night. My name is Brian Driscoll. I'm the publisher at IrishBreakdown.com. I'm joined by that guy, Vince Adara, football analyst, and we are going to break down Notre Dame's absolutely, positively dominating, convincing win over Georgia Tech. I'm going to start this show off, Vince. We got a super chat here that absolutely sums up this game, which I absolutely love. And that is from Sean Stewart. Finally got a complete game and loved it. And Vince, look, this is what we talked about in the pregame. They have not played a complete four-quarter, both sides of the ball game all year. They usually play at least one or two every year. They were due, and we both predicted blowouts, and neither of us came close to how convincing this game was. And really all three phases of the game. You could point to one kick return, which from Jahmyr Gibbs, which he took 40 yards. But other than that,
but dude, he's dynamic.
Well, that's your whole point. If you kick it to him, you fire the special teams coordinator. But we're not going to go there tonight. I mean, you had great return from Chris Tyree to start the thing off. You had great offensive performances, great defensive performances from a coaching and a player standpoint. And I loved what Brian Kelly did in the second half. We'll get to that in a little bit. Just a convincing win. Just for some context purposes, I would say, Vince, this is their most dominant performance against a Power 5 team, just from sheer level of dominance since the 2017 game over USC. Just as far as just, you know, like you could Pitt last year was 45-3, but that game kind of got out of hand on a couple turnovers. You know, the Notre Dame offense was kind of struggling in early on. It was like 14-3. They had the blocked punt. Remember that they returned. They had a couple interceptions deep in their territory. It wasn't really like a complete game. They couldn't really run the ball that game. They relied on some big plays. I mean, just as from a start to finish, all phases of the game, sheer dominant performance. This to me was it since 2017 over USC. It was Notre Dame's biggest margin of victory over a Power 5 opponent since 1996 in Lou Holtz's last home game at Notre Dame against Rutgers, 62-0 was the score of that game. They won 60-6 the week before, but 62-0.
They were close.
In Lou Holtz's last season.
They were close.
And it really was, Vince, just a dominant performance. And there was no emotional carryover from pregame. And for that to be the case, what you and I said during the week is it's up to the coaches to make sure they have a game plan that's geared towards getting them out of that emotional aspect of senior day and getting them into playing football. And it's not easy. And they did that. And kudos to Brian Kelly and his staff for that, because this team came out from the first snap of the game and was ready to play.
Well, and I will also say part of that was made a little bit easier because Notre Dame did not allow the families on the field, which was whatever. I mean, whatever you think about that, it was just the seniors going out to the seniors, and it's less emotional. I mean, because we've seen in the past, I mean, just bear hugs with dads and, tears with moms and the whole thing. None of that, obviously. Right. None of that. It was just the seniors dapping each other up, and it was time to play ball. And it was not anywhere near as emotional as it always is, and that disappointed me greatly.
It's still emotional, though, because you still, whether you're going to hug your mom or dad at all, you're still like, this is the last time. And you've talked to Notre Dame players. I've talked to Oscar McBride, Ryan Harris. I mean, all those guys, they talk about this, like, that last game at Notre Dame Stadium. And, boy, they came out locked and loaded. I'm going to get to a couple super chats here, Vince, before we dive more into this. But, the reality is, Vince, is they needed this kind of win to impress the College Football Playoff Committee, and they got it.
Yeah, well, that's what we asked for, right?
It was a dominant – they could have run it up, putting more points on the board in the fourth quarter, running it up. We'll talk some about that, but I don't think that's what they did. I felt they kept look, this is what I've criticized Brian Kelly a lot about. And you can say, well, they only scored 10 points in the second half. Doesn't matter. That's an execution problem from a lot of young guys. They were still throwing the ball in the fourth quarter. They were still letting them run the offense. They weren't just pounding it right up the middle. They were running outside, inside. Buckner was throwing. They were running play action passes. They ran the defense. And Marcus Freeman started putting backups in early in the third quarter, but he let them attack. They didn't start backing off. They didn't just give them yards. They attacked for 60 minutes. this football team attacked Georgia Tech. And that's the kind of thing that needs to be a normal, regular, every week thing under Brian Kelly. This was, and the other thing too, Vince, is to me, people want to know why I get so frustrated. I got everybody else talking, and I got to listen to Mike Tirico the whole freaking game about this is the best coaching job Brian Kelly's ever done, right? Nonsense. But I'm going to tell you something right now. Part of the reason I've been so frustrated this year is because this is what I thought this team was capable of. Now, I'm not saying they needed to play like this every week, but this is a level that we've always felt they could get to if they did the things we felt they needed to do. And today we saw it. And so I'm thrilled. I have not been this happy. And when I mean happy, I just enjoyed it. It was because I said to my wife, it's funny how a week can change things, Vince. A week ago, I looked at my wife after that game and I said, I don't enjoy watching this team play. They're just way better than everybody they play. They don't play with necessarily they're starting to play a little bit of swagger, especially on defense and all that. But they're just not an incredibly well coached team. And I'm watching Ohio State today, and I'm watching them scheme up to get guys open, and I'm like, But then we come out today, and that's exactly what we saw from Notre Dame. First play of the game, and on both sides of the ball. We saw that aggressiveness on both sides of the ball, Vince. This is why I've been so frustrated all year, because this is what the 2021 Notre Dame team should have been at the latest by the end of September, and it was fun. It was fun to watch. Coaching was good. Players were playing hard. The physicality was there. I mean, this was as good of a Notre Dame game as I've seen since really that stretch in 2017, in my opinion.
No, I agree. And it was so complete. It was so dominant. You're right. It was fun. And I normally chart and I write notes about every play. And after a while, it's like they're pretty much just doing whatever they want on both sides of the ball. And so I
stopped charting after one series in the third quarter.
I did. I got my popcorn. Literally, there was popcorn in the press box. I got my popcorn. I sat back. And I just started watching, and I started enjoying, and it was enjoyable to watch. I mean, 45 points in the first half for a Notre Dame team is ridiculous. I mean, they scored every possession that they had, if I'm not mistaken. And
they were held to a field goal on the first one, which we'll get to.
But they scored on every possession, possession. And I believe Georgia Tech punted 9 or 10 times. I mean, it
was something absurd like that. Yeah.
It was just absolutely ridiculous. So. It was a great performance. I will say what I took away from this game overall was the game plan. From both coaches and how they stuck with it throughout the entire game.
Right. I mean,
exactly. Throwing deep down the field when you're up 38-0 is just like, you know what, we're better, and we're just going to continue running our offense.
And it's your job to stop us.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was fantastic.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, so
let's get to a couple super chats here, Vince, that aren't necessary. There's one I skipped. That's because it's defensive specific.
Defense.
Yeah. And I'm going to get to that. But David Carpenter says, thank you for the super chat, David. There's our complete game. 24 was a grown man. That was fun. Georgia Tech pass defense looked like Michigan State's. And that's what we said all week is their pass defense is garbage. That Notre Dame needed to take advantage, and they did. Notre Dame went because this is a team that had given up at least 285 yards passing in like 6 of their last 7 games and had given over 305 of their last 7. Notre Dame almost was there at halftime.
Yeah.
Right now, the total numbers at the end of the game aren't going to look as impressive because of the way the second half went, which I will get to. But I mean, it was a unique combination of efficiency and explosiveness, which I loved. Jordan Schreiber, 0 touchdowns in 3 games. Are you officially for Marcus Freeman as the next head coach of Notre Dame? When do you think it'll happen? Let's enjoy this game. He's the defensive coordinator for this game.
Right.
We're going to talk about that because, that's obviously this was a brilliant performance. But he is correct. Michael Burke with a $21 super chat. Thank you very, very much for
Michael,
that.
Thank you.
And these next couple super chats are about the defense, so I want to get into those. So we had Jordan's was about the defense. Patrick Barnes with a super chat. Thank you, Patrick. Tackling was great today, except for 2 plays.
Bo Bauer.
The 22-yard run early in the third quarter where he broke like 9 tackles.
Yeah.
And then the Bo Bauer just whiffing in space. Other than that, the tackling was really good. What do y'all think of the O-line play? We'll get into that. Patrick seems improved. Not sure if that's due to weaker competition or improved play. It's a little bit of a combination of both, which we'll get into when we get to more conversation of the defense. But we had a couple that were related to the defense that I want to get to up here because Chris Irish Young, thank you, Chris, $5 super chat, thank you. I don't envy the Georgia Tech quarterback. He's going to be feeling that game all week. Props to Freeman and the rest of the staff on D for that game plan. So let's begin there, Vince, because I thought this was an absolutely brilliant game plan by Marcus Freeman that was executed flawlessly. Notre Dame has now gone 3 straight games without giving up a touchdown. They have allowed 9 points in 3 games. People say, well, this is the second straight game without a backup quarterback. Yeah, but this backup quarterback led them to 30 points last week against Boston College.
Right. He's no slouch.
He's no slouch.
He's good with his legs, too.
Right.
And they only allowed him to get loose, a couple of times,
right,
which is impressive all by itself. I mean, he had 11 carries for 20 yards.
And the one time he got loose was that play where Bo Bauer just whiffs. He should have had him for a much shorter gain.
Oh, yeah.
But the point is, this also isn't a kid that had never played before. This is a kid that coming into this game had thrown 109 passes on the season.
Right.
Because Jeff Sims was hurt early in the year. He threw for 254 yards and 4 touchdowns against Kennesaw State. He threw 34 passes against Clemson. And then he threw 28 passes last week against Georgia Tech. So this isn't the same as Jay Wolfork for Virginia, who I believe had 5 career passes coming into last week. I'm going to look that up real quick. I'm sorry, 6. I was way off. 6. So, and the thing about this game plan, Vince, is he coached in a way, and the staff coached in a way where it's like they knew that exactly what we said in the pregame. Georgia Tech is a team that's really only good at one thing, and that's running the football, and you've got to shut that down. And so what we saw from Coach Freeman was a few things. What's that?
I said, check.
Oh, yeah.
That was me.
Yeah.
That was me checking it
I
off.
was like, are you get out? A couple things I liked. First of all, they began the day in a 4-down defense, right? And it was their 4-2-5 personnel. And we saw that for the first 3 series. And in each series, he did something different. The first series, they come out in a 4-2-5. And on the very first play, they run a really well-timed and aggressive double inside stunt. Drew White timed that almost perfectly, crashed the line of scrimmage right after the snap, and then J.D. Bertrand comes tight off his behind, and he's right in the quarterback's face, almost forces a fumble on the first play of the game.
Man, was it close.
Yeah, they ran that.
It was the right call, but
it was the right call. I mean, it just has to be coming forward just a little bit to be a forward pass. And he was. It went forward, and then it hit, so it was the right call. Then you come out. I'm going to pull up my notes because I made all these notes like, oh, my gosh, I loved it. They second down, they ran for a 6-yard play. Cam Hart gets beat on a slant route, and then they go right back to where another stunt, and then on second down is when they get the pick 6, right? And it was another play where it was a run stunt. And the reason I'm bringing these things up is because all these things that we talked about were run stunts. It was Marcus Freeman saying, we're going to stop the run. And so then on the way that your run stunts are, because you use Isaiah Foskey as a down lineman, you're running a run stunt. He gets pressure because they decide they want to throw on 2nd and 2. He gets pressure and he forces, guy just heaves a throw, and Jack Kaiser's there to pick it off and run it back for a touchdown. The aggressiveness from the first play of the game. You come out the next series. In your first 2 plays of the second series, it's 2 straight plays of rover fires right off the edge. You didn't show that the first series. The first series was inside stunt, inside stunt, inside stunt. Second series, rover fire, rover fire. First one results in a stuff. The second one results because he has to step inside of the blitz. He gets stuffed by Kurt Hinish, 0-yard gain. Next play, Pryor comes off the edge. He forces the guy to step in. He gets sacked. And then it's 3rd and long, and you've got no chance against Notre Dame on 3rd and long if you're Georgia Tech. And then was it the third series that we saw them come out in the 3-down? It was either the 3rd or 4th series we saw them come out in a 3-down.
I made a
you
comment
made a comment to me because they went 3 down, Vince. But first time double inside blitz, and it just it was just something different the whole game. They were much more aggressive with their coverages. They said, you're not going to throw a quick game to us. You're going to have to beat us down the field. Problem with that, Vince, is every time they tried to drop back and throw it down the field, the defensive line was in their face. And at the end of the day, that is what makes this team so good, is when he turns that defense, when Coach Freeman turns that defensive line loose, man.
Yeah. And
it's impressive.
And it's not just the starters. I mean, it's the second guys, it's the third guys that come in, and they're still making plays. And again, I realize who the competition was, but it doesn't matter. They executed the plan.
Can I say something about that?
Please.
Georgia Tech sucks. We said that all week.
Right.
But this is exactly how an elite team is supposed to look against a team that sucks. So it doesn't take away from the fact that the fact they suck doesn't take away from this game plan, because this is exactly what you're supposed to do to a team like that. But Georgia Tech's offense doesn't suck. Georgia Tech sucks because of their defense. This is an offense that had come into this game in the 7 previous games was averaging over 30 points a game. And they threatened to score once. That was it. And we'll get to that here in a second. So anyway, please continue, Vince. I just wanted to, because I have had some people kind of say that to me. Wow, Georgia Tech sucks. Yes, they do.
I get it. Yeah.
But they could have hung 90 on them if they wanted to. I mean,
no question about it. And if you look at the other games that Georgia Tech has played, look, they beat North Carolina. That supposedly was a good win for Notre Dame, right? They beat North Carolina. They almost beat Clemson, who's a 7-3 football team right now, who just beat Wake Forest, who supposedly was the class of the ACC, right?
Wake
I mean,
Forest.
that's what we were told, top 10 team and all that. So look, is Georgia Tech bad? Yeah, they're not a good football team, but Notre Dame dominated them in ways in which they were supposed to dominate them, but in ways we haven't seen.
And in some, and in beyond even.
And beyond, I agree with you, because they did eventually take their foot off the gas.
Well, now, in the right way, and we'll get to that when we get to the offense.
I agree with that as well. I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
So this was a complete win. This was a great win, and this was a great plan by the coaching staff, and the players executed it, which is even better. And it didn't matter who was in the game; they were still executing the game plan.
So, speaking of the game plan, Vince, I think you're starting to really see, in my opinion, Marcus Freeman just really having just such a great understanding of what this team is and what his players can and can't do. And we're seeing him, I almost feel like, hear me out on this, okay? Hear me out on this before you, I'm talking to Vince, I'm talking to you and the people in the chat. Hear me out on this.
Fair enough.
I feel like the best thing to happen to Notre Dame is that it is Kyle Hamilton getting hurt. Let me explain. Because I feel like when you have a player as great as Kyle Hamilton, Vince, am I sounding all right? Because my thing just went down.
Your sound is good. Your visual's a little fuzzy.
When you have a player as good as Kyle Hamilton, you as a coach rightfully are going to game plan around him.
Absolutely.
Right? And your focus is going to be about him. Rightfully so. When he goes down, you have to kind of say, okay, I can't just build around him anymore. And so I've got to think about, how can I use JD better? How can I use Kaiser better? How can I use Pryor better? How can I use Ramon Henderson? How can I use Xavier Watts? How can I, get more out of Houston Griffith? How can I get more out of DJ Brown? How can I get more out of Clarence Lewis and all those type of things? And then, okay, I don't have him anymore, so I've got to use my front four now more effectively and more aggressively. And I feel like he's now been able to find so many more buttons to push, because he's not always just having to and he should have always relied on Kyle Hamilton. Sure. He's one of the best players in college football. But it's kind of like, and the other thing too is players tend to rely on a guy like Kyle Hamilton. Well, it's all right. Kyle's got my back. Well, when Kyle goes down, it's like, okay, I got to do my job better. You got to do your job better. You got to do your job better. And I feel like the whole team is kind of galvanized. Hey, we don't have our dude. We don't have our stud. It's up to us to step up and do it better. And I think that combination has made this team really, really dangerous.
Well, and I will also say it forced their hand a little bit to move Ramon Henderson to safety. And that's already in 2 games paying dividends. I mean, I was not anticipating Ramon Henderson starting at safety today. I mean, that was surprising yet fantastic to see. in my opinion. And if Kyle Hamilton's still playing, of course, why would Ramon Henderson be playing safety? So I think that, there's, when one door closes, another one opens kind of thing. Well, it opened for Ramon Henderson, and he was able to, I thought he played a pretty darn good game today. And so that doesn't happen if Kyle Hamilton doesn't go down. And now Notre Dame is able to prepare for the future at the safety position, and that's fantastic.
So anyway, Vince, this was, to me, I thought the game plan was really good. I thought it was very diverse, and I thought, and you made the point too that it was executed well. And I think the Isaiah Pryor thing is just a perfect example of Marcus Freeman starting to figure out who does what well and just letting them do it. Because what we saw from Isaiah Pryor today was perfect. Like, just let that kid attack the ball, and that's what he did. And I think he's starting to figure out how to use Clarence Lewis better. Because I think we've seen Clarence be better recently too. He's letting him be more aggressive. He's letting him beat guys up at the line. And that's helping him be more effective in coverage as well. So it just feels like he's really kind of finally figured out what all his pieces can do, and it's been really fun to watch.
Yeah.
Really fun to watch.
No question.
So
no question.
I think one of the things I liked about this game plan too was a couple things that stood out to me is the one time, he starts to kind of pull a couple starters, and then Georgia Tech rips off that long run. They get to third down, and he puts the starters right back in on third down. They sack the quarterback, and Myron picks it up and runs it back. And
let's hold on to that goose egg, man.
Yep.
I have no problem with that. I really don't, because it's not like Georgia Tech was playing a bunch of scrubs. They still had their starters in. So play ball, man.
Yep.
It is what it is. Like, usually, and this I think more pertains to high school ball, but like when the team that's ahead, puts their twos in, and then the team that's losing is like, okay, we throw in the white flag, we're going to put our twos in, or whatever. Then if you put the ones back on the field, that's playing a little bit of dirty pool. But if both teams have their twos in, then you let the twos play, right? And I would have no problem with that. But Georgia Tech played with their ones the whole time. They never brought in their backup. Well, I guess their backup quarterback was the one that was playing, but they didn't bring up in their backup anywhere else, from what I could tell. And so, you know what? Let's protect that goose egg. Let's protect that zero, because that's huge. You're playing against a D1 school.
Right.
That's huge. Protect that zero and let your starters go in and make some hay. And they did. And I actually dug it, man. Let's put your foot on the throat a little bit.
The other part of it too, Vince, was, we said Friday that just because of everything that he's gone through this year and his dad not being there, that we thought we'd see something special from Myron Tagovailoa most of today. And boy, did we.
Wow.
I'm not going to lie. I don't get emotional very often during a football game. When he picked that up and ran it back, I was like, oh, that's such a perfect. It could not have gone any better when something like that happened again.
Yeah, no, it was, you can't write the script really any better than that, which is the cool part about the whole thing. I mean, if you're like, let me think of the best way for Myron to go out in his last home game. Maybe he just picks up a fumble and goes 70 yards. Okay, check mark. Like, I mean, that, and the manner in which he did it, I mean, he moved, he takes the ball from one arm to the other. There's a little bit of a stiff arm there, a little bit of a high step action to get out of that one diving tackle. I mean, he basically did everything that you need to do to make sure that you get yourself into the end zone, not to mention the great block by Isaiah Foskey on the quarterback. It was just, I mean, what an awesome play. Just fantastic. And then they interviewed his mom, of course, on TV, and it's like, wow, okay. This, if you weren't emotional watching him run it back, you probably got a little emotional watching his mom talk about, how much he loves his professors, for goodness sake. Like,
which anyone that knows Myron is like, yep, okay, yep,
exactly. I mean, that was awesome.
So one of the things, Vince, is yesterday, one of the things I wrote about coming into the game was the last two games is the first time Notre Dame has not given up a touchdown in back-to-back games. First time since 2012. Well, that 2012 team did it 3 straight games. And so now they've tied it. The difference, however, is in 2012, they did it in 3 straight games. They did it against Michigan State, Michigan, and Miami. They gave up 12 points. Notre Dame has given up 9 in the last 3. So they are playing defense at an exceptionally high level right now. And that has been really fun to watch. I mean, in Georgia Tech only had 224 yards of offense. That was their lowest output. I mean, that was that. And well, let me say that the other thing too is 54 of that came on one busted play.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
a third of their yards came on two plays in the third quarter. They had 76 yards on 2 plays. I mean, that Vince was an incredibly impressive difference. And we'll get into the offense too, because the offense was really good as well. But this defensive performance, like Vince, it's kind of like Georgia Tech never even really threatened other than that one drive where the guy rips off the long run. And then that drive ended up turning into a Notre Dame touchdown, because the defense the defense has scored 4 touchdowns this season. They scored 2 and they've come in bunches. They scored 2 against Wisconsin and now 2 against Georgia Tech, Vince. The 2 of the 3 best scoring games of the season for Notre Dame are driven by 2 defensive touchdowns in each game.
Mean, but I will say, it was awesome that the defense scored 2 touchdowns.
Yes.
I mean, it was fantastic, but it wasn't in spite of the offense.
No, it was completely different than the Georgia than the Wisconsin game.
Absolutely.
Because the way the offense played, like, okay, they'd have scored anyway. You just
right.
You know what I mean?
They just want to get into the act.
Like, I do wonder, however, if that, because you can kind of get into our message. It was funny on our message board because when we'll talk about the offense here in a minute, but like they had that first big play and then sack, short run, sack, and it looked so much like what we had seen so much of the year. And I was like, oh gosh, we're gonna have one of those days again.
Yeah, right.
And then the defense responds with a pick 6, and it's kind of like now all of a sudden it's 10-0. You always wonder, like, is that the kind of thing to pick the other side up and take some of the pressure off the offense? That's not a shot at the offense. That's what good teams do, right? Is, hey, you had your drive, you settled for a field goal. Don't worry, we got you. And I loved it, and I really enjoyed it. And then the offense said, "Oh, okay, you guys want to get in the action here. Okay, now we got to step up our game," and they absolutely did.
Yeah,
it was. But defensively, and we got a super chat from Mike Huff. And this is why I brought up. This is why I was responding to his super chat without bringing it up when I talked about how they've given up 9 points in 3 games. That has not happened didn't happen under Bob Diaco. Didn't happen under Mike Lee or Clark Lee. Didn't happen under Mike Elko. Certainly didn't happen on the guy that was between Mike Elko and Bob Diaco.
No.
So, that is – so to answer your question, can you remember a stretch with 9 points given up in 3 games? I'm sure it happened at times in the 90s or 80s. It definitely happened in 66, right? I mean, because it gave them like 12 points the whole freaking year.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, no, in today's era of college football, holding 3 straight opponents, 2 of which were Power 5 teams, to only 9 points combined is a incredibly, incredibly impressive feat. So thank you for the super chat, Mike. Really appreciate that. But no, you're absolutely right. I can't remember a time where we have seen that. Michael Burke with another super chat. Thank you for that. Ryan Harris agreed on radio screaming, "Protect the goose," as Georgia Tech missed a field goal to end the half. Yeah, and it was a block. I mean, you had the block, you had a big play at the end. Yeah, but see, to me, here's why that's important. And I didn't know that Ryan said that because I wasn't listening to the radio broadcast, but here's why it's important to have that mentality to say, hey, we're going to put our number 2s back in or our number 1s back in because we're not letting up a score. That's that mindset that we talked about last week, where we talked about how it's not just that they didn't score at the end of the first half. If they would have tried and not gotten it, okay, you gave it a shot. You just, 100, minute 16, 2 timeouts. You had 85 yards to go. It happens. It's that they didn't try.
Yeah.
It's that mindset. Well, then you fast forward a week and it's like, hey, we're not going to just give them points. We're not going to just let them score because they're at 45-0. It's no, you're not scoring on us.
Right.
And then when you take that into the second half, when it's 45-0 in the third quarter, the game is over. To see him do it again, it's like, okay, that's a mindset. We're not going to let you score. It's like that scene from Remember the Titans. They don't gain another yard. If they get past the line of scrimmage, I'm pulling every last one up. You know what I mean? Like, it's a mindset. And today we saw Notre Dame play with the killer instinct that they need. And they didn't run up the score, right? They didn't. And we'll get into that here in a second.
Agree.
when we talk about the offense, but they still dominated from start to finish because no matter who was in the game, you were playing with the same mindset. Now, offensively can change a little because if you're running jets and reverses and play actions and stuff like that in the first half, you don't want to be doing that in the third quarter.
Right.
Or in the fourth quarter up 55-0. But you can still run your offense. Or you still run your defense. And we saw that tonight. So, yes, Michael, it's a mindset, and it was great to see that. So, Vince, anything else to add from the defense other than just, wow, this team is playing at an incredible. I mean, Vince, they didn't even threaten really Notre Dame to score a touchdown. They even threatened to score a touchdown.
No, they really didn't. And it's great to just it's great to watch aggressive defense. I love aggressive defense. I love smart defense. I love, it was very clear that the scheme that they were using was directly influenced by what they were seeing on film from Georgia Tech. Okay. And they can just continue to run the same stuff over and over. And Georgia Tech had no answers. I mean, they were running that same blitz where Bo Bauer kind of fakes like he's dropping, then wheels around and comes in. They ran that like 5 times, right? And they were running it late in the fourth, like they were running into the fourth quarter. As long as Bo Bauer was in the game, they were running that. And
I saw Prince Colley coming downhill a few times.
Georgia Tech had no answers.
D-line was still aggressive. They were still attacking. Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
No question. So it was just fun to watch.
But it's a mindset thing though, Vince. It's an attitude. I don't care who's in the game. We're attacking all night long.
Yeah, exactly.
And I loved it. And again, it's not fantastic. Running it up's like bringing corner fires, right? Like, I'm sorry, you don't put your second string in and run a corner fire and drill the guy in the back. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that's like, oh, come on, man. Right. Like, you know what I mean? Like, okay, you're kind of running it up a little bit, but you still attack. And I thought they did that. And I was correct. Georgia Tech's 224 yards of offense was, in fact, their lowest of output of the season. Their previous low was 298 yards against Clemson, who has a very good defense, obviously. You saw what they did to Wake Forest today. Right. So I'd say that's pretty good. When you're holding them to 74 yards, 74 yards below what Clemson held them to, I'd say that's a pretty good day's work. And it's the fewest yards they've had in a game since going back to 2019 in a home loss to Georgia in Jeff Collins' first year. So it was a really, really brilliant performance. Last year, for example, against Georgia Tech, Georgia Tech had 238 yards at 4.0 yards per play. And today they had 224 yards at, and just really just a dominant game plan. And I'm trying to figure out what their yards per play was. Just give me 1 second. That would be 63, 3.6 yards per play. So, I mean, even more thorough domination of them than we saw from them last year. And, of course, this year they held them to 0 points. Last year's defense only gave up 6 points against Georgia Tech because, remember, they returned a fumble early in the game. Kyron Williams fumbled, and Georgia Tech ran it back for a touchdown. Right. That was their only touchdown last year. So you've now played Georgia Tech 2 years in a row, and you haven't allowed them to score a touchdown offensively. That's impressive. And doesn't hurt recruiting. They're from Atlanta. Not that a bunch of 5-stars are going to be looking at, go to Georgia Tech, but they're going to be paying attention. So and pass defense has now held 2 of their last 3 opponents under 100 yards passing. Now, I mean, that's kind of a but
it is what it is. I mean,
it's kind of a spinny type of like, oh, you're kind of not really being honest there because, of course, the first team they held under 100 was Navy, and so,
it's still there.
They haven't given up over 200 yards in 3 straight games though, and so I think that was the encouraging thing for me is that we didn't see. One of the fears was just giving up big plays. And to me, I mean, when I look at this team, it's hard for me to not be thrilled. Here's my 5 keys to the game for Notre Dame's defense. Number 1, get early stops. Check. Number 2, dominate the trenches, stop the run. Check. Number 3, limit quarterback run yards. Check. It didn't happen until it was 45-0.
Big play.
Right?
Yeah.
It was 45-0 when they finally. No big plays in the pass game. Check. And then number 5, get the ball. And they got the ball. I mean, not only did they get the ball a couple times, they took it back to the house every time. So brilliant game plan. So Vince, now it's time to talk about the offense.
Yeah, please. Let's talk about the offense.
I know you've been chomping at the bit to.
Well, it's hard to hide my my love for offensive football. So, but no, I will say this. Again, Tommy Rees came out and had another creative game plan. And look, we wanted him to get everybody involved. Check. He got everybody involved. I mean, we saw end arounds, we saw, in jet sweeps, things of that nature. We saw some screens. We saw, obviously the run game. We saw them pushing the field vertically.
They threw a seam route to a tight end.
Yeah.
Two.
Yes, exactly. I know. I texted you. I was like, wow, amazing what happens when you abuse the seam. Like, and they got Michael Mayer involved, on a regular basis, which was great, when the game mattered. There was nothing that I was looking for from an offensive standpoint that I did not see.
Yeah.
Right?
Other than just better execution from your backups.
Okay.
I mean, and that's something said by every single coach that's ever put backups in the game.
Yeah, right.
In mass. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean?
Absolutely.
I mean, look, we saw early on, I'm not going to lie to you, I was a little like, okay, why are they doing so much 12 personnel early on? But it was a setup, right? It was a setup.
Yeah.
So first play of the game is when we started to see that this was a little bit of a different game plan from Tommy Rees. And what I mean by that is one of the concerns, one of the things we've complained about is so much of the horizontal stretch stuff, the left or right, which makes it a little easier to defend. And one of the things we said coming into the game was you've got to do things to make Georgia Tech communicate because they will make mistakes. And we saw Tommy Rees take advantage of that. First play of the game, you've got 12 personnel. You've got Kevin Austin to the right, Braden Lindsey to the left. They run Braden Lindsey on a deep corner route. So not just a normal post corner, but like a deep corner route. And they ran, I can't remember if it was a play action or not. I'd have to go look it up. I didn't write down whether it was a play action or not. Vince, did you know whether or not it was a play action on the first play of the game?
I don't think it was.
But it was out of 12 personnel.
But it was a slow developing play because Kevin Austin had to come all the way from like a wing position.
It was a deep drag.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I want to. So Chris Tyree, first of all, it's great to see him on the kick return. I'm going to pull this play up here real quick because I do want to look at this. So it was 12 personnel from a reduced lineman, right?
Yes.
So you had both of the outside guys were reduced. Both tight ends it was a play action. It was. I just watched it. It was a play action pass. And so the linebackers came up, and that allowed Kevin Austin time to get behind him. Then they took the backside safety away with the action from Braden Lindsey. So that opens up Kevin Austin on this deep drag route. And what was the thing we always complain about is it just seems like Notre Dame's offense never really schemes guys open. So you have Lindsey on a deep route. Mayer was to the left. He immediately releases on a slide. The outside linebacker runs with Mayer. There's this giant zone open for Kevin Austin to run through.
Huge.
That's scheming for success.
Yep.
Started right away. Didn't love the red zone play calls because they went back to some horizontal stretches and they gave up the sack. But here's something, and again, we'll have some criticism for the line, some praise for the line. The first series from the line was awful. Josh Lugg gets beat twice. He gets called for holding. But I'll say this. After that bad first series, the pass pro the rest of the game was really good. Jack Cohn had a lot of time to throw the rest of the game. It just was kind of like a bad start, but they bounced back and gave him time the rest of the game. And then you come out the second series, Vince, and, you run a counter on the first play. They tried to run a wheel route on the second play, but some guys came free, and so he had to throw the ball away. And again, I'm like, here we go, right? It's like you got guys running free and all that kind of stuff. Then they get to 3rd and 5, and he went 21 personnel. Again, Chris Tyree in the backfield, Kyron Williams outside. And he ran a high-low on the boundary. So what he did was, and it's not a concept we've seen a ton this year, is he ran Mayer on an option route, and he ran Kevin Austin, who was on that same side, on a deep in cut. So if they overplay Mayer, you've got Kevin Austin coming behind him on a deep in cut. We haven't seen a whole lot. That's a vertical stretch, right? Chris Tyree has a great blitz pickup, hits the guy. Jack Cohn gets time to throw, makes a great throw. They come out later. You're at 3rd and 3, and Kristofic just gets beat up right up the field, and you gain like a yard. It's 4th and 2. There was no hesitation from Brian Kelly whatsoever about going for it. That showed me that they're coming into this game with an aggressive mindset. You know what I mean, Vince?
Yeah.
They go for it on 4th and 2. They did another thing. They ran levels. I was so happy. Levels is a bunch of crossers and meshes where, it's like levels of the defense.
Yep.
He could have gone deep to Lorenzo Styles. He could have taken that shot, but it was kind of well covered. He would have had to get it out in front of Lorenzo. It would have had to been a really good throw. But he sees Braden has got to step on a guy, so he holds on. Jack Cohn holds on to the ball long enough to let Braden clear the linebackers, and he throws it out to him for the first down.
Right.
But
it was a little behind him. If we're nitpicking, it was a little behind him.
But he spread the field. I love 4th and 2. You spread the field. Hey, we're throwing. You know what I mean? Try to defend it. You get a nice run block from Jarrett Patterson. You go for the score, right? You come out the third series. Okay, it's 17-0. You get the ball back. You come out in the third series. He goes design swing screen to Chris Tyree. That was a design screen pass. The one where he just throws a little swing pass. Tyree catches it. It wasn't a check down because Michael Mayer's blocking. It's a swing pass, goes for 9 yards, which is what? Getting one of your best athletes the ball in space. And Chris Tyree runs a dude over, gets 9 yards. On 3rd and 1, he goes 13 personnel. Reese goes 13 personnel, put 3 tight ends and Kevin Austin in the game. Clearly they're running the ball on 3rd and 1, right? Nope. Jet sweep to Kevin Austin for 8 yards. I'm like, I'm great. And then the next play, they run play action. And it was like like a pop pass. We've been begging for this all year. Runs play action. Georgia Tech bites, and Michael. How do you leave Michael Mayer that wide open? Because it's an undisciplined defense, and when you do things like that, well designed stuff, Michael Mayer's wide open, and I'm thinking, welcome to the 2021 season, Coach Reese. Right? Because now it's 2 games in a row. We're seeing 12 personnel, 11 personnel, jet sweeps out of 13 flipping personnel. Right, which we saw last year.
It's not obvious what they're going to do.
Right, it was not obvious they were running that play, and then you're seeing 12 personnel. That was the second big play. They gained 90 yards on 2 12 personnel play action passes in the first quarter. Right, because it was also 12 personnel on the touchdown of Michael Mayer. So Vince, there was just so much to like. So much to see, so much versatility. And I could continue and go on and on and on and on about more things that we saw, but it was just, man, it was so much fun to watch. It was so much fun to watch.
It was.
Hold on a second. I'm looking at it. Was that a play action pass? I had it written down as play action, but I could have been wrong on that now that I'm looking at it. It was 12 personnel for sure. I'm watching the play over again. Continue, Vince.
No, I was just going to say the creativity was what I loved. I just loved it. I mean, getting guys in motion, using Georgia Tech's undisciplined nature against them. We talked about it during the week. Like they will let guys loose, but you have to find them.
You have to be creative to take advantage of it. You can't just run 4 verts and they're going to turn. It was just hope somebody gets turned loose. By the way, I just back. It was a play action.
Yeah.
But you're right. You have to scheme your way into that, right?
Right.
And
I thought this. I thought this offensive strategy, this offensive game plan, just fits Jack Cohn to a T. And he's obviously not the mental head case that he was earlier in the season. He has
because they're doing a better job of protecting him.
They are, but he is playing with a confidence that we haven't seen. At the beginning of the year, the last few games. I mean, he was 15 of 17 to start the game.
Yeah.
15
for almost 300 yards.
I mean,
285 yards in the first half.
What else, if you're not a Jack Cohn fan, and that's fine if you're not, but what the heck else do you want with him going 15? That's 88%. Okay. 88% completion percentage to start the game. And that was into the third quarter. So, and I believe, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those throws, of those 15 throws went for first downs, and 2 more went for touchdowns. So 9 of those 15 completions either went for a first down or a touchdown.
Well, and you talk about Jack, the mental part of it. Jack was so poised today.
Yes.
And he could have let that first series kind of get in his head, because the first sack, he's got to throw that ball away. You got a guy running a deep corner route, just throw it over his head by 30 feet. You know what I mean? The second sack, he looks away from his first read, and the guy's right in his face. There's nothing to do.
The second one was not his fault.
First, he's got to throw the ball away, right?
Yeah, I agree. Completely agree.
But then you come back later in the game. It's I think it's 24-0 at this point in time. It's the 3rd and 3, and they did it. They went to 21 personnel again with Kyren in the slot, and this time they ran a middle of the field high-low. Did you remember the play I'm talking about? The Kyren caught for a short gain. So you got Michael Mayer running a deep end cut and from one side, and you got Kyren Williams. So you got your two best players running a high-low right over the middle of the field. So linebackers like, well, who do we cover? Well, they covered Michael Mayer. All right, well, Jack allowed Kyren to get across enough to where he was kind of past the linebackers. You could dump it off to him, and now Kyren could just go do something with it. That's a throw early in the year. He throws 100 miles an hour, and he throws right now. And maybe Kyren still gets the first down, but he's got the ball where the linebackers can then rally to him. You know, that was a great play. And then one of my favorite designed plays of the game was the screen touchdown to Logan Diggs.
Oh,
because they're in 21 personnel. Kyren had just come off the field. They put Chris Tyree in a slot and run him on a burst motion, right? A burst motion is basically your
sprint,
your show and jet, right? It looks like a jet sweep.
Yep.
So they run jet sweep, and Jack Cohn just stares at Chris Tyree. Just staring at Chris Tyree.
The whole defense goes that way. Okay.
And they come to a slip screen backside to Logan Diggs. I mean, and Josh got a great block down the field.
And that's not easy to do, by the way.
No,
I'm just saying,
but
as a big
you
lineman.
talk about great play design. Again, taking advantage of their lack of discipline. Jack Cohn sold the heck out of it, right? He's like, I'm throwing a swing to Tyree. I'm throwing a swing to Tyree. I'm throwing, and just nope, can't check down.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a beautifully designed play. Perfect. And the fact that they did it with Kyren on the bench says a lot about, number one, the talent of the backs. But I also thought that kind of mattered too, because if you're running a jet sweep to Chris Tyree and Kyren Williams is still in the game, somebody's still keying Kyren Williams. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
When have we seen them throw a lot of slip screens to Logan Diggs? We haven't seen it. So, man, I said this in the live chat during the show, Vince. I don't know if I can remember. USC 2017 is the only other time I can remember a game where I was so incredibly impressed by the game plan, the play calling, and the adjustments by both Notre Dame coordinators in the same game.
Yeah.
I really can't. Now, we've seen games where the offensive coordinators had great games, but the defensive coordinators just really didn't.
Sure.
And part of that is some of the games where Clark Lee had great success. It was the game plan was just be sound and let your athletes take over. I'm talking about like where they were just scheming things and all those kind of things. And that doesn't mean that those weren't great jobs by Clark Lee. They were. It's just it's not what I'm talking about here.
Right.
Where I just like, wow, like both of these guys were dialed in. I mean, just flat out dialed in. And, again, the offensive line, not a lot of great movement, but I'll tell you what, their movement in the run game from the 20s was mediocre to below average. But when they got in the red zone, you saw the offensive line kind of pick it up a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, and I like that, right? Like the touchdown run from Logan Diggs was about as easy of a cutback 5-yard touchdown as you're ever going to see.
Right.
Because Kane Madden and Josh Lugg both just washed down the defensive line. George Takis had a really nice drive block, and Logan just says, "Oop, I'm going to go right here." I mean, I don't have a lot of complaints. Again, second half, I like to see him execute better in the second half. The first drive, I don't think they executed.
Yeah, I didn't like the first drive. I agree.
Went 3 and out, but it's not like they just went inside zone punt. They just didn't execute. And then you put your backups in. Well, no, you didn't. Next drive, you put in Tyler Buckner, even though the backups are in. He runs, I love it, read zone from your own 4-yard line or whatever. And he goes
60 whatever yards later.
Love that. But after that, look, they were still throwing the ball in the fourth quarter. They were still trying to take shots. Just the execution wasn't there, right? But they never stopped running the offense. And so, again, you can say, well, they only scored 3 offensive points in the second half. Okay, I can live with that, right? Because it was more about you went to your young guys early, but you let them run the offense, right? And they didn't execute. And it is what it is. And they weren't pushing the tempo like they were in the first half, which they shouldn't have. That's the other thing. You don't go tempo in the fourth quarter when you're up 55-0.
Right.
So I can live with the fact they only scored 3 points
look,
because, again, it's a mindset. The mindset was right. They just didn't execute well in the second half.
Well, look, Brian Kelly said in his post-game press conference, he said, well, Tom and I sat down and we talked about the fact that we want to run the offense in the second half. We want to run the offense. We don't just want – where has that been?
Right.
Like, where has that been for the last 12 years?
Somebody posted on the board, and I'm going to say this because, it's going to piss some people off, which is partly why I'm saying it, to be honest with you. But somebody said Brian Kelly definitely listens to Irish Breakdown because he talked at halftime. If you couldn't hear the proc, he was talking about we're going to play to the Notre Dame standard in the second half, and I was like, yeah, okay. He's talking about we're gonna run the offense second half. Okay, thank you. But it's like the whole game plan. It's like you said to me before it was like you should come up with a list. This would be taking arrogance to a whole new level.
Yes, it would.
Come up with a list of all the things we've said Brian Kelly and Tommy Rees need to do offensively, and then let's put checks on all of them. And I thought no, I can't do that. But the point is this. It's not saying we were right and they listened to us. The point that I'm excited about, however, I do know that they listen to us because I have had some conversations with people that over there that makes it very clear that they're listening to our criticisms. I don't think they like them. I don't think they're trying to adopt them, but they definitely hear them.
Sure.
But the thing is I've seen a willingness from Tommy Rees to change more than we've seen from coordinators in the past or even Tommy Rees last year, when things weren't working, they just kind of said, well, we just got to do it better. We've seen him completely go away from what they were, adapt completely to the personnel, and we're now seeing them be such a more balanced, spread out, don't care where the ball goes. Even something like you were like because I'm on stream, so I'm always like a minute behind you. And I had texted you in the third quarter, or was it second quarter? Man, I love this game plan. And you're like, wait till you see the next play.
Yeah,
and
because it was the first play of the half or whatever. Yeah.
And explain that, talk through that play of why it was the Kevin Austin pass.
It was the Kevin Austin play. They were up 38-0, and you're like, man, we're talking about how, man, this is a great game plan. They're being aggressive. They're throwing it downfield, and I'm like, just wait for the next play, man. Yeah. And I was shocked. I'll be honest with you. When Jack Cohn stopped, he dropped back and he took a shot. I was like,
and it was a design shot because you had Kevin Austin in the slot, with Braden Lindsey outside.
Yeah.
And they were in 12 personnel, and that was clearly a design shot. It was clear because what they had been doing out of Twins is they were playing a lot of man coverage on the slot receiver.
Yeah.
Out of 12 personnel because they're playing run. And so, again, that's another one. So I'm going to see if I can find that play. I don't think that was a play action pass, but I'm going to find it and find out for sure. But the point being, Vince, actually, I'm on the drive. The point being is that I absolutely love the aggressiveness that we saw from them in this game to go out and attack down the field, attack the middle of the field on the intermediates. It was really just a great, well-designed game plan that that one was a pure drop back. So they took George Tackles on motion. He ran a middle route, and Michael Mayer ran a crossing route. And you ran basically like a stop with Braden Lindsey and then just a one-on-one scene with Kevin Austin.
Right.
And Jack took the shot. I mean, I loved it. And I just loved it. And they brought a wide blitz. Josh Lugg went out. Kyron stepped to it. It was a poorly executed blitz, but Notre Dame would have picked it up even if it wasn't poorly executed because they saw it. They tried to bring a rover fire, and Josh Lugg and Kyron both saw it, and they stepped out to block it. So just a really, really well-designed play, attacking all parts of the field. Yeah, I loved it. And here's another thing. Name me a running back group, a running back room that you would trade for Notre Dame's. We have a super chat here from Coleman Clark. Said it was so great to see a Kelly team finally put their foot on the jugular. Agree. Estimate is a monster. Where the heck was he earlier in the season? Sitting behind 3 other monsters. That's the problem.
That's exactly the problem. And somebody asked where Sibo has been.
He is hurt.
He's hurt, but he got passed up too.
Yeah, he got passed up by Logan Diggs, but he's been banged up a lot this year. He's had multiple injuries. He had the 4-game. He was not available for 2 games.
Right. And I
But
saw a
yeah,
20 walking around pregame.
he was not
You know,
dressed.
not dressed.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that was JoJo or if
No,
that
that
was
was him.
Sibo.
That was
Okay.
Sibo because there was on TV you could see him standing behind Coach
Okay.
Kelly. You could tell it was
It's
Sibo.
hard to tell from the
He
ninth
got
floor.
hurt the week before the Virginia game on a Tuesday practice.
Gotcha.
He got hurt. He got some issues. So really big time. We have another super chat here from Lawrence Adams. Missed the charity event next year. We got you. Thank you, because we are definitely doing it next year. Went out and spent another big thing. I don't know if y'all saw it, but some Faith Mission we hooked up today. They were awesome. They came and brought we had too much stuff for the car, and I was like, we didn't think the store was going to have as much as they had. So I called them. I said, "Hey, we're out here in Elkhart. Can you come meet us?" And they brought a big truck. We loaded it all in the truck. So we're about 20% in of spending.
Long ways to go.
Yeah, long way to go. But we're doing it every day. We find we got new need and some working on some other things. So we're gonna get it spent, and we're gonna, you know what I'm gonna be doing tomorrow on Monday. But this has been much better the season with IB every week. 10-1 feels great. Been a wild season. Yeah, that to me is the thing is you always want to be playing better. You always want to be playing your best late in the year. And there's no doubt that Notre Dame has been playing their best even before today.
Yeah.
But it was just like there needed to be another level. For at least one game, Notre Dame found that gear. But I think the thing that the previous super chat brought up, Vince, is name me a team that can bring a guy like Logan or Audric Estime off the bench, and he's your fourth running back.
And that's the thing. I mean, that's how deep this running back room is. I mean, the 1-2-3 punch next year, because I assume Kyron is going to leave, but the punch of Tyree Diggs and Estime, it's pretty solid. I mean, that's a pretty good 1 through 3.
Yeah.
And we know Notre Dame's going to go 3 running backs, and that's fantastic. And you're not going to get a drop off when either one of those 3 guys are in. So the future is very bright in the backfield for Notre Dame. There's no question about it. Did you see the super chat at 7:08, by the way?
No, I'll go back up and find it when you read this one.
I will. Lawrence Adams, thanks for the super chat. Really appreciate it. These O&D type games are so much harder to game plan for by opponents in the future. Feels so good to see diversity and getting so many involved. Could not agree more. It was on both sides of the ball, getting everybody involved, and it was awesome. It was great. I just, it's what I asked for, and I'm not saying that they need to do what I ask for, but one of my keys to the game, I've got it written right here, is that get everybody involved, and they did.
They did in 2 ways. One is whoever was on the field early. You had a jet sweep to Braden Lindsey that went for 12 yards. I mean, there was that I can think of. There was a designed pass where at least one different player was the primary guy you're trying to scheme open for every skill player they played in the first half.
Yeah, I agree.
Kyron, obviously. Chris Tyree, you threw the swing screen to. You had a jet sweep to Braden Lindsey. You had a screen to Logan Diggs. You had the deep drag on the first play of the game to Kevin Austin, plus the other one to Kevin Austin. And then you had several plays that were Michael Mayer was clearly the number one design player. That's not easy to do. That's what the best coordinators do. That's what Lincoln Riley does all the time. That's what made this it wasn't just that he had good schemes, but he had schemes designed around, let's get Tyree a touch. Let's get Kyron a touch. Let's get Mayer going. Let's get Braden going. Let's get Austin going. Because when he's calling plays like that and Jack is executing the heck out of the game plan like that, how do you stop this offense? And so you say, well, Georgia Tech's defense isn't very good. No, it's not. Neither is Virginia's. But this week they did what nobody else has been able to do, and that's actually annihilate that defense in a way where it was over by halftime. Right. If Brian Kelly wanted to be an a-hole, he could have easily scored over 70 in this game.
Oh,
easily.
No question about it. No question about it.
And that would have been running up the score.
Yes.
I'm fine with how today went.
This was not running up the score,
and
though.
it was senior day, so you had to put Cole Copeland in there. Yes. But they put some walk-ons in the game late that they could have maybe tried to go get another score. But at that point in time, no, that's running it up, right? But you put Cole in the game, let him get a snap, man, because that kid, he's the signaler that they put in late in the game, and he got a chance to play. They got some other guys in, which I loved. But by that point in time, it's like, hey, guys, it's senior day. There's some other things more important than getting to that 62. You know what I mean?
Right.
Got a super chat at 708 from Indy Nation. What's the deal with Pine not playing? He looked good when he was out there. Also, what's your take on Tyler Buchner and his passing skills or lack of? Thanks. First of all, the reason Drew Pine didn't play is because, number one, this is Tyler Buchner's the future of Notre Dame's football team and should be. And as much as I love Drew Pine, late in the game, they wanted to get some of those other guys in the game to let them get a snap. And Drew was just as you could see his face on the sidelines. He was just as excited about it as the other guys. But right now, you're still trying to get Tyler Buchner ready to be more of a playmaker and to be able to run more of the offense. That's more important. You know what Drew can do, right? Drew doesn't have anything else to prove to you at this point in time. You know what he can do. It's about getting Tyler Buchner ready. As far as his passing skills or lack of, I think Tyler's passing skills are going to be fine. This is exactly why we told people when they wanted Tyler to start that he's not ready yet. The kid did not play football last year. He's played 1 year of high school football in the last 3 years, right? He's going to need time. This is what we said. This is why I wrote the article in the summer and in fall camp that I did to say Tyler Buchner is going to be great, but he's going to need more time than your normal top-ranked recruit.
Correct. Absolutely.
And so, and it's not the running. The running part's easy. That's just you're an athlete or not. I mean, that's the easy part. It's the going through progressions, making reads, knowing when to throw back shoulder, knowing what spots to get open. Like he had one real bad miss on the third down. To me, that looked more like the walk-on receiver went too far inside. He's got to see that opening and kind of sit more outside. I don't actually think that was necessarily on Tyler, but he was off on some throws and a couple things like that. But I mean, that's going to come. That's gonna come. I'm not worried about that.
But the time he's getting on the field this year is invaluable.
Yes,
it's invaluable. And in the past, I don't think he gets that time.
No.
So I'm gonna give props to Notre Dame and the offensive staff for getting him on the field as much as they have, because this is absolutely invaluable. Because the mistakes that he's made this year, if he's your starter next year,
make them now instead of against Ohio State.
Yes. You don't want to make those mistakes then. You want to make them now. So this is invaluable time that he can get at game speed against D1 opponents. Like this is what you need. And they're getting it for him, which is fantastic. And there's going to be bumps in the road. We've seen it. It's going to happen. And guess what? There's probably going to be some bumps in the road if he's the starter next year too. So you're going to have to be patient. That's what I'll say there.
But he's a dynamic kid. And that's the thing that's why you continue to let him work through those things and gain that experience, because he is a dynamic player. We have a couple more super chats. Ryan Olenek, $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Ryan. Very, very, very much. And we got another one down here I want to get to.
Yep, I'm scrolling. There's one from Gregory Gilbert.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
He says, happy to see Dorr not miss any kicks.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know what? I'll say this. He started the season off not well. I think he missed a field goal in three or four of the first games of the year. I'm going to pull this up, but he has been, from what I can remember, I guess maybe I'm forgetting something, but he has, let me see here. He missed a field goal against Toledo. He missed a field goal against Purdue. He missed a field goal against Wisconsin. He missed one against USC, and he's made his last four. I mean, he was 3 for 3 against North Carolina. He was 1 for 1 against Navy. They didn't use him last week, and he was perfect today in his only field goal attempt. And he's made now, let me see here, 7, 12, 15, 19. How many? They scored 7 touchdowns or 8 touchdowns today, right, Vince? No, 7. I'm trying to. They got
7 times 7 is 49. So
did they kick? They kicked 2 field goals today. So he kicked both of his field goals today. That's right. I keep forgetting that they got a field goal at the third quarter. So he got 2 field goal attempts, made them both today, and so he's now made 6 in a row. So he's been pretty steady. Of course, I'm Matt D. Okay, Matt D brought this up. He's talking about that I'm calling Matt D's my man. That's my guy. It's a friend of mine. But I told him I was going to call him out this week, because he said this week, he goes, John Dorr hasn't kicked the ball out of bounds all season. And I said, if he kicks this out of bounds on Saturday, I'm blaming you. And he did. But it didn't really bother me because it took a funky hop. Yeah, he didn't kick it like bad.
Because if it was caught on the fly like it's supposed to,
right,
that doesn't go out of bounds.
Right. But it's still
put it where he's supposed to put it.
Yes, I'm not blaming John Dorr. I'm blaming Matt D. The other thing too is I'd rather it go out of bounds than into Jahmyr Gibbs's waiting arms.
Absolutely. I would kick it out of bounds every time and let them take it on the 35 with the way the defense was playing. So yeah, absolutely. Craig Sebring has the next one. A little Thanksgiving humor here. Thanks for the super chat, Craig. He says, hope all the Freeman haters are eating crow instead of turkey for Thanksgiving. Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
What?
I mean, I don't want to get into that whole because things are going now that there weren't mistakes made in the past, right?
There were.
There were. And there's another one just came in, but you want to go grab it. But I don't want IB to be that with each other, right? Where when people
like, we were right, you were wrong. Yeah, that's
right.
Not
like
how we want to be at all.
Yeah, like just because, like if Jack Cohn plays a bad game now and we're critical of it and he comes out the next week and it's great, it's not like you shouldn't have been so hard on him last week. The only way you can do that is if last week you said, oh, screw him, he should be benched, he's terrible, we'll never play him again. Most of us aren't that way, but Coach Freeman did take a little bit more time to really get this defense rolling than I thought. But I think the defense has been a lot better than people realize for quite a while.
Yeah.
And I made this point before this game. Notre Dame was given up since the Toledo. So from after Toledo game, the Notre Dame defense was only giving up like 16.5 points per game in their last 8 games. Well, that's going to go down now.
Yeah.
And that included giving up 34 points in North Carolina. So, when I look at it, it's the defense has been ascending for a while. It's just I think the expectations were set so high that, and this is a guy who will say, hey, can we not do this right now? Can we allow Coach Freeman to coach a game first before we anoint him as Brian Kelly's successor, right? And
now everybody's worried about him getting poached by SEC schools,
LSU, right? Which they should be because they're going to want him because they recognize what we've been saying.
They're going to call.
Look,
an athletic director is not doing his job if he's not giving Marcus Freeman's people a call.
Right.
That's what I'll say there. Now, do I think Marcus Freeman's going to leave? I do not. I personally think Marcus Freeman is about more than just a quick paycheck and a head coaching job, no matter what the job is. Right. We said that about Clark Lee, that he's not just going to take any head coaching job, and obviously the Vanderbilt job was something that was near and dear to his heart. Makes sense. I get it. Right. I think Freeman is in the same vein. I don't think he's just going to jump at the first opportunity to be a head coach. So, everybody, I think, now I could be wrong. Maybe he's on the next plane to Baton Rouge, right? But I think everybody can just relax. I don't think he's going to go anywhere right away because, look, he's recruiting some dudes, okay? And when you recruit, you become invested, okay? Now, I've never recruited before outside of going to some middle school games and trying to get them to come to the high school that I'm at, but you've done recruiting before. You become invested in these kids.
You do, but at the same time, you always, at the end of the day, what's best for you and your family is always
I get that.
Thing.
I totally get that.
Yeah.
And if it was just about the money and it was just about some of those other things,
if the right job comes along, he'd leave. But I don't know if the right job is the ones that are available now. Because right job just isn't, it's a great school or great. I mean, it's also about, okay, do I want to live there?
Yeah.
Do I want to live?
Do I want to raise my
Baton
6
Rouge?
kids there?
Exactly.
That's
pass.
That's a real thing when you have a family. Okay.
Yes.
It's not just about you. Right. Yeah. So that's important.
So we got another super chat down there, Vince. If you want to pull that up from Jay Clamper Investments.
You want me to go all the way to the bottom?
Well, we're allowed to now, Vince, because we can go all the way back up to the top. We're good now.
Solid point you make. All right, Jay Clampett's jumping in with the huge super chat.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jay Clampett. You are the man. Sorry, late to the show. My memory could be screwy. I can't think of a more disruptive D lineman than Foskey has been this year. And let me just say, as I'm scouting Notre Dame and I'm an offensive coordinator and, I'm putting together my plan and I'm executing my plan on game day, never would I want a tight end going one-on-one with Isaiah Foskey in a pass rush situation.
Did Georgia Tech even watch Virginia's film last week?
Like, what are you doing? I just whoa. Wow.
How do you not say we're going to make someone other than Isaiah Foskey beat us?
Like, if you want to bring a tight end over to double
Right.
Isaiah Foskey, okay, but not one-on-one,
That
man.
was
And that
dumb.
is not that tight end's fault. He was put in a position
Yeah.
to fail.
That was
Okay?
dumb.
That was just not
was
good
dumb.
coaching.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That was really dumb. I don't understand that at all. I think there's been two guys, in my opinion, that I would put into Isaiah Foskey's territory. And what I mean by that, like, obviously Jerry Tillery had the great All-American season in 2018, but Jerry Tillery, you know, he was great in Stanford. Had like 4 sacks against Stanford and finished with 8. He kind of wore down late because he was battling a shoulder injury, which, you know, Isaiah's been a little banged up too. But the thing that makes Isaiah unique and why I would compare him more to the two guys that I view as the two most disruptive D linemen compared to him is, to me, part of being disruptive is being disruptive consistently, not just having a couple big games. Like Jerron Jones still had the most disruptive game of any defensive lineman that Notre Dame's had. And, you know, when he had that 5-sack game against Miami in 2016, which I think a lot of people forget about because we've all, like, you know, tried to, you know, erase that whole season from our memory bank. But the two guys that I would say he's on par with are Sheldon Day in 2015 and Stephon Tuitt in 2012.
There you go.
And the reason I would say the reason I'd say those two guys is, like, Sheldon never had a monster game that year. Sheldon in 2015 finished with 15.5 tackles for loss. He only had one game where he had 2.5. He had 3 other games where he had 2. But it was 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 0, 2.5, 1, 2, 1, 0, 1. He was disruptive every game. And Sheldon that year too was money. When they needed a stop, he was a guy that oftentimes came up with a stop. And I thought Tuitt was that way as well, Vince. He just was consistently disruptive. And that's the thing about Isaiah. Isaiah doesn't have a game this year where he just has gone out and been like, you know, 4 sacks, right? I mean, it's just, it's
he's just
2,
consistent.
1, 1, 0, 1, 1,
and he's consistent
2,
with
1.
the pressures.
Yeah.
Like, just
not just sacks.
Exactly. Making plays and allowing other guys to make plays because he's making plays.
And
right?
that's the thing about the Jay Clamp. He didn't say, I can't remember another guy having more sacks than Isaiah Foskey. Right. It's disruptiveness. He had a sack, 2 forced fumbles, 2 more pressures. He's just a guy that you have to account for. And to Rob's super chat comment, I can't believe they didn't double Foskey. Amen, dude. Like, I'm with you, Robert. I mean, how do you not look at what Virginia and said, hey, we're going to make Jason Adamiola beat you, make Myron beat you, make Kurt Hinish beat you. Now, look, here's the deal. They can, and they will. But you at least got to feel like, as a coach, I did my job to make sure we at least took that dude off out of the game plan. But no. But in his defense, here's the flip side. In his defense, it can kind of be like well, if I do that, then what am I going to do about 57? What am I going to do about 95? What am I going to do about 41? And now that Riley Mills is starting to really peak, what about 99? Oh, who led Notre Dame in sacks today? It was Foskey, right? Nope. Oh, was it Adamiola? Nope. Myron? Nope. One of the linebackers on blitzes? Nope. Kurt Hinish? Nope. Howard Cross had 2 sacks in this game. I mean, it's like, it doesn't matter who you put in. Remember the series where they had a 3rd and 2, they went false start, and then they had a delay a game. If they don't get a false start on that 3rd and 2, Jacob Lacey just crushed some guard. He was about to blow that play up. I mean, Jacob just beat it. Do you know what play I'm talking about, Vince? This first half. And it's like,
because they had 2 consecutive penalties, right?
Yeah, you had a false start on 3rd and 2. On that false start, if they don't blow the whistle dead, Jacob Lacey had just destroyed a guard.
Yes, absolutely.
And was about to blow that play up. It's kind of like, you might have been better off with the false start.
Yeah,
now, of course, you couple that with a delay of game, which didn't help. But the point being, Vince, this is what makes this D line so good. You can take a guy out and it won't matter. Right. It didn't matter last week against Virginia. They took Isaiah Foskey. He didn't have any sacks because they double teamed him the whole night. Guess what? Notre Dame had 7 sacks. By the way, Notre Dame now has 38 sacks on the season. That is a record under Brian Kelly.
Is it
by
really?
4?
Wow, I didn't realize
34 was the high. They had tied that twice. They had 34 in each of the last 2 years, I believe. They had 34 last year, 31 last year. Excuse me. They had 34 in 2019 and 34 in 2018. So it was back to back, but it was 18 and 19.
What's the overall Notre Dame record?
I don't know.
You know?
I would imagine it would
I was
be
just
a
curious.
year in which Willie Fry and Ross Browner were playing together.
Were they keeping sacks back then, though?
I think Lou would have those numbers. Like Lou would always kind of talk about that. So I imagine they kind of went back and did that.
Gotcha.
But I don't know. I mean, it's
Of course,
I
Lou
think
would
there's
have
been
those
I think
numbers.
there was a year under Davey or Holtz where they had in the 40s, I believe.
Okay.
I'll have to go back
Well,
and look.
They're in
And
that
that would have
neighborhood.
been, believe that meaning, I believe Lou had told me that at one point in time.
Okay.
But that's why he was the GOAT and
I know,
I'm
I was
not,
gonna say.
because I have to think about it. But he would
I
have just
almost
pulled
reached
it
for
up.
my phone
Yeah.
and was like,
I did that
wait.
today. No, seriously,
Yeah.
I did that today.
Yeah.
When I was writing about the 38 sacks in my article and how it was the most since that at that moment. And then when I was thinking about when was the last time they beat a Power 5 by 55 or more, I literally picked up my phone to text Lou
Yeah.
and then got
Because
sad.
anytime that you start a sentence with "when was the last time,"
Yeah, that's
dot,
my
dot,
first
dot.
thought. My first thought is to call Lou.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
And
No doubt.
but they have 38 sacks now, and the previous record was 4. So in 11 games, they have surpassed the numbers of any team that went to play 12 or 13 games since Brian Kelly arrived. They had 33 in 2012, which was a pretty good year. They've got 38 through 11 games this year. It's been impressive. Some of the things
That's
that Marcus
awesome.
Freeman
That's like 3
and
sacks
Mike
a game.
Elson, Marcus Freeman this year. I think that's a good combination too, because Marcus
do
wants
too.
to be aggressive and Elson wants to turn his guys loose.
Yep. No
And
question.
boy, it's
No
been impressive.
question.
It's
A couple
been
more
impressive.
super chats. Let's polish these off and we can maybe get to some other stuff as well. John Nestler, thank you for the super chat. Says, cheers, Brian and Vince. We put it all together, having a beer and hanging with you guys. Go Irish, go IB Nation. Sounds
Absolutely.
like a great way to end your Saturday, John.
Exactly.
Well played,
I love
sir.
it.
Well played.
I am realizing, however, that this long sleeve navy blue Irish breakdown hoodie shirt is not the greatest idea for this background, because I feel like it's just like hands in a face. There's like
You just got a floating head.
and floating hands. You know? It's kind of like, I don't know if this is working out real well.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
That's funny.
but,
That's funny.
I want to
I
pull this up real
go
quick
ahead.
too. I want to respond. Tool Worker says, please keep in mind what a terrible team Georgia Tech is, and this is what I was referring to earlier.
Yes.
We don't have to keep that in mind, Tool Worker, because we said that all last week.
Yeah.
But this is exactly what they hung 45 freaking points on this team at halftime.
Yes.
Even
which
if
is
you
not
take
easy to
away the
do.
defensive touchdown, they hung 38 on them. They scored on every single possession in the first half, right? This is what great teams do to bad teams.
Yep.
Alabama
exactly.
last week played New Mexico State, beat them 59-3. Georgia Tech would smash New Mexico State.
Yep.
Smash New Mexico State. Okay. Georgia today, right? Best team in the country, and they played Charleston Southern, beat them by 49. They were winning 49-0 at halftime against Charleston Southern. Notre Dame was winning 45-0 over an ACC team, right? So we understand that they're not good. But this is exactly what a great team is supposed to do to a team that stinks.
Exactly.
I love this response from Tommy Guns real quick, too. Offense only put up 41 points. This is unacceptable. Sarcasm.
Hey,
Very well done,
I said
Tom.
they were going to put up 43. I want to say 42.
Yeah, I said 45. So
yeah.
what I meant to say on Saturday was that's the
offense.
halftime.
Yeah, that's
score.
the halftime score. Except
I'm
I
not
had
predicting a second half score.
Except I had Georgia Tech scoring 13. So
I had him scoring 17.
Whoops.
I think Marcus Freeman was a little pissed at us.
Yeah. Whoops.
What? 17? Okay, Driscoll, we're not friends anymore. You're done.
You're not getting invited over for Thanksgiving dinner.
Nope.
Sorry.
Nope.
John A1 has a super chat here. Thanks, John. Says Tosh Baker should be the first tackle off the bench. I wasn't
Who'd they
paying
put
that
in
close
tonight.
attention.
I wasn't either. I was kind of writing stories at that point in time.
I
Who'd
believe they
in
put
there?
Tosh at right, and I believe they put Carmody at left.
I
and
thought
put
no, they had
Rocco at
Quinn
left.
Carroll at right.
Did they? Okay.
That's the only I saw Quinn Carroll, and the other thing I noticed was I saw Rocco Spindler getting in there.
I did. I saw that as
and
well.
I thought the couple times I watched him, I thought he was pretty good. That one run that Chris Tyree had, Rocco was going up against a big old joker and pushed him off the ball. Yeah, that dude was big.
Hey,
but he pushed him off the ball. So yeah, I'm looking at it now at the 9-something mark of the fourth quarter. Again, this isn't the first time the seconds were on the field, but they had Quinn Carroll at right tackle. This is the point where they were talking about that Irish punter.
Yeah, they really went deep on the Irish punter.
Yeah, they really did. Yeah, Quinn Carroll was at right, and Carmody was at left. He's not a tackle. He's not a tackle.
Carmody?
He's not a tackle.
Yeah,
Carmody,
no, I agree.
Not a tackle.
Yeah, I agree. I will say, though, you know, they had all these tidbits. They're talking about the Irish punter. They're doing all these things. When you're announcing a game that's 55-0,
oh yeah,
you got to talk about something.
Yeah. Oh, they had to be scrambling at halftime. Like, guys, it's 45-0. What in the world are we going to talk about in the second half? Who's going to be getting in the game?
Field is
right.
Terrible.
Who's going to be getting in the game? What storylines can we talk about? You know,
give me some tidbits. Yeah,
right.
No doubt. So I can't blame those guys for going
a whole quarter talking about the punter, though. I'm just saying.
I know. James has a super chat in here we got to get to. He says, how can you tell the offense and defense is improved versus Georgia Tech? It's not good.
That's a good question. That's a really good question, James. I think that's a very fair question. Vince, you want to take first crack at that?
Well, the first crack I'll take at it is offensively. It is the play design, and it's the manner in which they go about their plays. It's not even necessarily the completion of those plays, okay? It is, we weren't seeing jets, and we weren't seeing, ways to scheme to get guys open and ways to get certain guys involved. We weren't seeing that before. Mm-hmm. Now we are. That's an improvement, okay? And yes, they are completing those things, and some of that is because of the level of play of the defense, but some of it's just because they were scheming to get guys open, and that's what you should do. So that's how I would answer that, and I would say the same thing on the defensive side of the ball. When Notre Dame's defense has not been good, they've been sitting back. They've been sitting back and letting the offense kind of dictate who they are. When the defense takes their game to the offense, they've been very effective and they've been dominant. That's the difference.
Right. And I think you can always look at things like execution. You can always look at things like, did they play hard? Did they do things that have been mistakes in the past that you can tell as a coach, independent of how good the opponent is, right? So as I'm watching a guy take his pass set, I can see if he did a good or a bad job. If I'm watching Jack Cohn throw the ball and it's just thrown to these wide open guys because Georgia Tech sucks, and you're like, well, that's not going to work. But then I can see schemes that I've been begging for all year since the summer and say, okay, that's there. That's going to get open against so-and-so as well. I've seen that concept work against Ohio State or, against Alabama too. And with the players they have, you can see those kind of things. And so to me, those are the things you look at and say, hey, that's how I know, and that's how I can feel comfortable that this was also execution. But again, at the end of the day, your responsibility is for you to do your job and do your job at a high level.
Yes.
And it's like, I remember when Notre Dame played New Mexico and they scored 66 points. My podcast afterwards was like, that was not an impressive performance. They were just better than that other team. I mean, you could remember the play like Javon McKinley catches that ball at like 5 yards down the field, and he breaks like 15 tackles and goes in for touchdown. You're like, that play's not working.
It's just like swatting flies, and it's
that
just
play's not working against Georgia. And the next week it didn't work against Georgia, right?
Right. Exactly.
But when I watched that jet sweep action with the slip screen backside to Logan Diggs, I'm like, that can work against anybody.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
When I'm watching them execute a play action pass with Mayer and Lindsey going deep and Kevin coming on a drag, that stuff Bama would do last year with Devontae Smith that would always get open.
Right.
And so those are things that you can look for, James, to say, hey, look, that's stuff that translates. And what you're looking for as a coach is you're looking for things that translate or not. It's in the same thing like when you're watching high school film, right?
Yep.
You see a back do something and you're like, yeah, okay, that's fine. But he's not doing that when he's facing, linebackers from Michigan or Ohio State or Georgia or Alabama, right? It doesn't translate. What I saw today translates. There weren't throws, and I'm like, if Jack Cohn tries that against so-and-so, that's a pick, right?
Right.
Now, there are certain things that you can't really tell how much a team is improved. So, for example, a question was asked earlier in one of the super chats about the offensive line improving, and is it really that improved, or is it about the other team sucking? And it's like, it's a little bit of both, right? Because what you're not seeing from the team now that you did see early is it just turned a bunch of dudes loose, right? Just guys run through. This guy makes a play. We don't block that guy. Not finishing off blocks, not staying engaged. We saw that in the first series. Georgia Tech tried that stuff again later, but that time the Notre Dame offensive line picked it up. Whereas in the third game of the year, they could just keep running that blitz all game and they'd never figure it out.
Yeah, right.
And so that's improvement. Right now, here's the other thing you look at and you say, okay, there are things they're doing in the run game. This is why we're not bragging about how great the run game was. We've hardly talked at all about the run game because the run game to me is still a little problematic for me. Now, you're still seeing backs that are just super talented. And then, of course, you have a 68-yard run from Tyler Buckner that pads the stats a little bit. So you went over 200 yards. But those are plays, James, to James's point, that's not going to work against Georgia. You can't just hand the ball. I mean, there was one point in time where Logan Diggs stopped. Literally stood still and let you know what I mean? And then just ran for a yard. You know what I mean? It's like, you try that against Georgia, it's a 3-yard loss.
Yeah.
Right. And so those are the things, James, that don't translate. So I'm still concerned about the lack of a running game against a good team. Georgia Tech stinks. You can get away with those things against Georgia Tech. If you're not getting movement and you're just doing a body on a body, that's fine. And this is what we said. Hey, look, with the teams Notre Dame plays, that's all they have to do because they're so much more talented and their skill is so much better than everybody else. But against Georgia, that's not going to work as much. Right. And so to answer your question, James, again, this is what I love about our group, Vince, is because they asked. This isn't him being negative.
That's a legit question.
This is a legitimate question.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so to me, like secondary wise, I watch Cam Hart get beat on a slant route early on the first drive, and I'm like, that's poorly executed.
He did.
Against a better team, that might go for more yards. But then they try it later and it gets picked up well. Or I'm watching Clarence Lewis on a time where they tried to beat him deep early and he pedals, he jams, and he has a really clean transition and his forearm goes right into the guy's chest. That's not the kind of transition that he was doing earlier in the year and he was getting beat on. So I can look at that technique and say, that's going to transition when they play so-and-so, right? And those are the things you look for, James. Or because other times you say, and we've done this before, we've seen Notre Dame. Well, last week's a perfect example. Notre Dame wins 28-3, and we're like, yeah, that was more about just they're way better than Virginia.
Right.
Right. And we said the same thing in Navy. Yeah, I mean, they won big, but there was a lot of things to be upset about, right? The reason we're so fired up about this isn't 55-0 per se. It's the reason it was 55-0, right? It's that you saw execution, you saw creative schemes, you saw versatility, you saw diversity of personnel, diversity of, I'm attacking stretch one play, I'm attacking horizontally the next. I'm doing levels on third and fourth down that we haven't done all year because
it wasn't as predictable. Like it in the past, we could tell. Well, they're in that. They're going to be doing this.
Yes.
That's just not the case.
I would not have predicted 12 personnel play action passes that would have covered 90 yards, right? And you say, well, Georgia Tech sucks. Yes. And I don't know if it's going to be that wide open against a better team, but it's going to be open.
Right.
So maybe the 52-yard touchdown to Michael Mayer doesn't go for 52-yard touchdown
against
Georgia.
20.
Maybe exactly.
Yeah, exactly. You're stretching the field.
Yep,
absolutely.
Exactly. But the 51-yard play to Kevin Austin maybe does because you get a one-on-one down the field and you're able to do that. So absolutely phenomenal question, James. Absolutely great question. Great question.
Jack Pothast. Jack asks, first of all, thank you, Jack, for the super chat. He says, odds of making the playoffs, chances against Georgia. Well, Jack, part of the odds of Notre Dame making the playoffs have to do with the game that I'm watching right over here with Utah in the red zone, and it is 0-0 right now against Oregon.
Cincinnati got a big win tonight, which helped.
Yeah,
them.
They really did. I thought they were going to struggle today.
They smacked us.
They that was a statement game for Cincinnati. I'll give credit where credit is due. That was a statement game for Cincinnati. So, touche to them. That was impressive. And Utah just scored. So if Utah can hang on to this lead, Jack, the odds go up for Notre Dame. But I would say if I was a betting man, scale of 1 to 10 kind of thing of Notre Dame making the playoffs, I'd still put it at like a 3 right now, 3.5. But there's a chance. right? But they still need some things to happen ahead of them. So
I think there's a greater chance than you do.
do you really?
I do.
Okay.
Because they're automatically going to go up to number 7 this week because Michigan State's out.
I agree.
They're going to go up to number 6 the following weekend at worst because
Correct.
Ohio State and Michigan play.
Correct.
Right. And so then you still have one more remaining game of teams that are ranked both ahead of them. Alabama has not impressed me.
They almost lost today to Arkansas.
I would say they almost lost.
Well, it was a touchdown
but it was competitive.
It was
competitive.
Their last touchdown, I don't think was a touchdown, but that's a different situation.
But like they're not able to stop Arkansas, right? Georgia's better than Arkansas, obviously.
Sure.
So I'm not convinced that Georgia's going to first of all, Bama can beat Georgia.
Of course they can.
I mean, when I say I'm not impressed by Bama, it's relative to how good Bama's been in the past, not everyone else, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
It's a very vulnerable defense. Their offense is good, but their offensive line can get exposed at times by really good fronts, and Georgia has a really good front. They have clearly one of the 3 or 4 best front sevens in college football. I'm not ready to just say they are the best because, again, as I've said, they haven't really played any good offenses in good offensive line, but they're clearly one of the 3 or 4 best in college football. So I don't know that game's I think people are assuming that's going to be a close game. I don't think it's necessarily definitely going to be a close game.
Yeah.
And I still believe a 2-loss Bama team doesn't get in over Notre Dame. Now, they still may get in if other things happen, but I don't think they're going to get in over Notre Dame. So now if Bama loses, that gets you up to 5, correct?
Yeah, and then Oregon loses.
So now you just need one of Oregon, Cincinnati, or Ohio State to lose. I don't think any of those, because here's the thing. If Oregon does hang on tonight, barring Utah losing next week to Colorado at home, they're going to get a rematch in 2 weeks.
Sure.
Because if they beat Colorado next week,
I think they split. I think it's very similar to the Oklahoma State situation.
Yeah.
I think
Texas,
that's gonna
Oklahoma
be a split.
remember that they had that 1 year.
Yeah, I think that'll end up being a split, and I think the Oregon Utah game will end up being a split. So, no, I think it's my prediction
but right
is
there.
Notre
I
Dame,
don't think the way this season has been, none of that's far fetched.
I think Notre Dame ends 5 at 5.
Yeah.
That's
could.
I think
it could. I'm not saying they're going to get in. I'm a little bit more. I don't think as much craziness has to happen as you do because a lot of it's already happened.
Right.
I mean, you've had 4 teams ranked ahead of Notre Dame just flat out lose in the last 3 weeks.
You're right.
Just flat lose.
You're right. And then chances against Georgia. You want to tackle that in
let me see how Notre Dame plays next week
10 minutes
Stanford.
or less.
No, I'm just not ready to go there yet because
Okay.
I want to number one, I want to see how Georgia plays against Georgia Tech next week.
And I think that's a really good point. They mentioned that on the TV broadcast today. And
we talked about it this during the week as well.
It can't be the be all end all, okay? But it's a point. It's a data
just
point.
Another data point. That's right.
It's a data point you can discuss because it's 1 week removed. I mean, it's back-to-back games. And so I feel like it I'm not saying if, Notre Dame won by more points, so they should be ranked higher. That's not what I'm saying. Right. But you can glean a little bit of something from that. So I do think that it matters. It matters a little bit. So it's going to be interesting to see how that one turns out.
And the other part is I want to see how they do against Alabama. Like I want to see how that game plays out.
Sure.
But I also want to see how Notre Dame handles so all year Notre Dame's done some good things, but right now they're on a crescendo, right? They've just kind of gotten better and better each week. I want to see them finish strong next week. If they go out and do to Stanford what I think they're going to do to Stanford, because what I said before the season was if this team plays to their potential, I think they can play with anybody. And I still believe that with all my heart, that if they play their game, they can play with I'm not saying beat anyone, but play with anyone.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'll be honest with you, right now, I'm more concerned about Ohio State than I am Georgia. Right now.
After watching what they did to Michigan State today?
Well, the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, their offense is playing at a very high level. Now, I'm not surprised they dominated Michigan's defense. We talked about this in our predictions. I predict them to score 45.
The corner's got to be
because Michigan State had literally the 130th ranked pass defense in the country. There's only 130 teams. This is the same team that 2 weeks ago gave up over 550 yards to Purdue. Okay. This was a terrible matchup for Michigan State. The reason that I was impressed from Ohio State today is not what their offense did. It's their defense flat out shut down Michigan State's offense.
Yeah.
Michigan State's got a good offense. and they dominated it. That's what could make if their defense starts being good, not even great, just good, that's going to make Ohio State very, very tough to beat. Georgia, to me, they just don't have an offense that scares me. I mean, you could score 24 and beat them if you're a good team, if you have a good defense.
Sure.
Ohio State's one of those deals where I don't care how good your defense is, you're not scoring 24 points and beating them or 30 points and beating them. You're going to have to outscore them.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Oregon did.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed. Okay, we got a few more here. We actually got a few in the queue. So Paul Olmstead, thank you, Paul. Really appreciate it. He says, I don't remember such a dominant win. Is the Michigan State head coach still worth $95 million?
Yes, he absolutely is.
Here's what I will say to that. I hope he signed that contract and just walked out of the room laughing. Because look, I actually talked about this with our buddy Sean Stiers on the radio yesterday. 10 years. I don't care what the dollar amount is, to be honest with you, but I think 10 years is a little excessive. And I think I'm shell-shocked by the whole Charlie Weiss 10-year contract. I think I will always, like, every time I hear a 10-year contract, it's like, boing. But they don't want him to be poached. And his name is involved. And so I get it. If I was a Michigan State fan, I would have hoped that they would have gone to him and be like, hey, what's it going to take for you to stick around? I doubt that he would have said, 10-year contract. I don't know that would have been the response. But they went with it anyway, and it was booster driven. So if the boosters want to put their money in there, then so be it.
But see, here's the thing too, that 10-year, $95 million contract isn't just about, oh, gee, we're going to pay him. Number one, it's you're looking forward in 10 years. In 10 years, a legitimate top 15 coach is going to be worth way more than $9.5 million on average, right? Just the way that salaries are growing.
You're
number
not
one.
wrong.
Number two is it's also about protecting yourself if he does leave, because there's no contract that keeps you at a job in the way that, I mean, I wish there was. I wish it was, hey, you signed a contract, you honor the contract. I wish that was the case, but
it is
it is not. But my point is now Michigan State's in a much better position where if they do leave, whoever takes him is going to have to pay them a boatload of money.
Yeah.
Which means now they're going to have more money to now go out and get the next guy.
Right.
And so that's what also makes it a lot of sense for Georgia, for Michigan State is, number one, if no one wants to take him, then you've locked him up. And if you want to fire him, you just means you got to pay a little bit more of a buyout, but it also protects you if somebody wants to poach him. Because if he wants to leave for the LSU job at the end of the season, he can still leave. That 10-year contract,
of course he
can.
Of course,
but now Michigan State's going to much bigger. So they're also taking advantage of his success in that they're now going to be better off if he does leave, because the buyout now is way bigger than it was before.
And I assume that there's a clause in there somewhere, if they want to fire him.
Correct.
They're not going to be paying him for 10 years.
Correct.
But
with anything, and so if he doesn't pan out,
except the Charlie Weiss contract, not with that one.
So that's what I would say to that, Paul, is he's still worth it. And the other thing is just one bad game doesn't mean that you're not doing a great job at a place.
Right.
That's the other thing I would say.
They were overmatched. I mean, they did just flat out.
The fact that this was even here's my response. The fact that this is even considered a big game is why he got.
It's a testament to why the fact. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Kevin Fetters with the big super chat. Thank you, Kevin. Really appreciate it. He goes, this is for what you guys do. Appreciate all the coverage.
Yeah, appreciate that very much, Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin.
Very,
thanks
very
for
much.
hanging out with us, man. We really appreciate that for sure. Josh Phillips, the next one. Thank you, Josh. It says team peaking at the right time, especially on defense. Is this a playoff contender, or is Georgia Tech just that bad?
Oh, it's Notre Dame's a playoff contender. Yeah,
both.
Yeah,
I mean,
Georgia Tech's bad, but nobody they've played this year has done this to them.
Exactly.
Nobody.
People need to remember that. I think we got some more down here.
That's the thing is, like, look, Georgia Tech sucks. They do. But this isn't like when they beat Bowling Green 52-0 in 2019, where it was just like they were making silly plays in that game. Like, come on, like that. This is embarrassing, right? Like, this team doesn't belong on that field. We've watched Georgia Tech. We've watched them score 30 on this team and that team, and score 40 on Virginia and lose by 8. They had Pitt beat them by 31. 52-21. They played Georgia in a low scoring, or Clemson in a low scoring game, right? Like, this is not a good team. We said that all week. Half time I didn't want to talk about Georgia Tech because they're not good. But this is exactly what a playoff team is supposed to do to a bad team. right? I mean, this is the kind of game that got everybody on the hype train about Ohio State, right?
Right.
Because Ohio State went out there and played some really bad teams and blasted them. You beat Akron 59-7. Notre Dame beat Georgia Tech by more than Ohio State beat Akron. Okay, they beat Rutgers 52-13. They beat Maryland 66-17. They beat Indiana 54-7. Right, this is exactly what great teams are supposed to do to bad teams.
Yeah,
dominate them in every single facet of the game.
This is what we asked for.
Yes. So I'm not going to then say, well, Georgia Tech sucks. Is there a way that Notre Dame could have won 55-0 and I'd have been like, it's Georgia Tech? Yes, we've seen those before.
Yeah.
This isn't it. This wasn't a fluky game. Because here's the other thing. Maybe if they don't get the second pick, if they don't get the first touchdown, like from Kaiser, it's only 48-0. Maybe.
Right.
But there's nothing to say that if Kaiser picks it off and falls down, that the offense doesn't score 3 plays later.
Agreed.
Because Tommy Rees had their number today. I mean, they could do nothing. He knew exactly what to do and when to do it and all that kind of stuff. So who's to say they don't score offensively 3 plays later off the turnover? Right. If Myron picks it up and runs 30 yards and gets tackled, who's to say they don't punch it into the end zone 3 plays later? This isn't like the Wisconsin game, right? Like, and that's a great example. I thought Wisconsin sucked at the beginning of the year, and they did suck. And Notre Dame wins by 28. And what did we say after the game? Don't let the final score fool you. That was not a well-played game offensively.
Right.
This was. Last week, they won by 25. People were getting all pissed off after the game because we were being negative about stuff, because there was stuff to be negative about. But you watch this game and you say, there wasn't anything I can pick apart about this game except, again, the one time they kicked to Jahmyr Gibbs and he returned it back. It's like,
right. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, this was
one thing
the game plan was great. And I nerd out when I see good game plan. That's the thing for me, is like when you just go out talent a team, it's like, yeah, okay, great. Notre Dame has good players. But like we were in a discussion before on the chat, on the message board before the game started, as we're watching Ohio State, like, man, this is what a good team's supposed to be, man. They're scheming dudes open. They're designing plays to get guys free and running post snap switches and levels and all. And I'm just like, man, I wish Notre Dame would be like that. And Tom Reeves was like, hold my beer. You know what I mean? Like, it's like,
hold my beanie.
I got you, Drisk. I got you. Like that's how, you know what I mean? And that's what they did. And that to me is what excites me about this game, is it wasn't just Notre Dame had way better players. It was, yes, they have way better players, but they flat out coached Georgia Tech for 60 minutes. And this is the kind of game plan on all phases of the game that I want to see more of. And this is what I thought this team is capable of being. Because here's the thing. Do they beat Cincinnati 55-0 if they play the way they did today? No. But I'll tell you right now, they beat Cincinnati by 17 or 20 if they play like they did today against them.
Yeah,
and and that's to me what excites me about what this team is doing.
Gregory Gilbert next up in the super chat train. Thank you, Gregory. Really appreciate it. He says, don't know if it's just me, but I can't stand Breeze doing the game. I didn't mind him. I don't know. He doesn't necessarily bother me. I kind of like when he gets into the weeds a little bit and starts going down and getting technical and I dig that. You know what I mean? I think he's actually really, really good at that. He tries to be neutral, and sometimes you can tell that maybe he's not neutral. Okay, I get that. And you know what? He's human. I get that too. I really don't. I don't mind him. I like Tony Dungy better. I will say that, but I think Drew Brees is doing a good job. And people also have to remember, if we're gonna have a conversation about Tyler Buckner not having any experience, Drew Brees has no experience.
Yeah, never done it before.
Learning on the job.
Considering that, I think he does a great job.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's some things he does where I'm like, that was cringy. Like, he's just repeating the talking points the coaching staff gave him.
Sure.
He doesn't really know this offense, but like, I don't think he spends all week studying the Notre Dame offense. If he did, he'd be sounding like Tony Romo in the booth.
Right.
This is a pathway for Drew Brees to get to covering NFL games. Right.
No doubt.
Understand that.
No doubt.
And that's where his time is being spent when, other than like, the couple days building up to this game. That's fine. I don't like it. I said it this summer. I don't want Notre Dame to become the minor league or the stepping stone to teams, for NBC. Like, hey, let's let this guy practice on Notre Dame games to go do NFL games, whatever. But he doesn't. He's a smart guy. He says some good things. I enjoyed Drew. He communicates well. And it doesn't bother me.
Phil Frank.
Thank you for the super chat, man.
I wonder if he's a Jack Cohn fan. I wonder if that's what that is. I don't know. We'll see.
Why is $17?
Yeah, it's a very random amount. So, 17 is obviously a number that means something to him. So just throwing it out there. Dennis Rydell, 2-loss Alabama team doesn't get in. Good win tonight. Notre Dame moves up 2 spots after Utah finishes off a whipping.
I wouldn't say that a 2-loss Alabama team doesn't get in. I think they still can get in because they could be going against other 2-loss teams. What I have said is a 2-loss Bama team's not getting in over Notre Dame. Now, they could get in and Notre Dame's the 3 seed and Bama's the 4 seed if they lose again, but they're not getting in over a 1-loss Notre Dame team, right? And today was a perfect example of why the 13th data point thing just pisses me off like no other.
Yeah.
Like Alabama played New Mexico State and Mercer this year. If anything, Notre Dame has an additional data point on them.
Yeah.
Right? Georgia played Charleston Southern, right? Like Mississippi State played like Tennessee State. All right. Stop talking to me about the 13th data point, please.
Yes.
Please.
I agree.
Ridiculous.
I agree. We are caught up.
Okay.
I do believe. And if I were not caught up, please throw a message in the comments section and I will find it. But I think we're caught up. Do not send another super chat if you did already and we didn't see it. I apologize, but throw it in and I will go look for it.
Because it's completely Vince's fault. 100%.
I'll take it.
Yes.
I'll take it.
Yes.
I'm
absolutely.
married. I'm used to taking that.
It makes me sad when you say things like that.
I love my wife dearly, and she's got a real big birthday this weekend.
We didn't talk a lot about it, but I did think the special teams was good today too. The coverage was good. Yeah, that one return mistake. I don't fault him for the ball bouncing out of bounds. That's just kind of like when you make a great punt and it just kind of happens to take that one extra bad hop you can't really control. I thought the punting for the most part was solid. Nothing great, but solid. I thought the PAT field goals were, even though they had multiple holders because they were trying different dudes out, like, not trying dudes out, but like letting some guys get some experience, some seniors get a chance to do it. I thought was good.
Which is that, and that's not that what you just said right there. That's a real thing. Like when you have a different holder, it's different. Like no holder is the same. And there's a reason those guys let's put it this way. There's a reason that holders have become punters, right? That the punters are now the holders as opposed to like the backup quarterback, because those guys can work together during practice all the time, whereas the backup quarterback isn't always working with the kickers, obviously. So because you need that experience, you need that familiarity with your holder, and to kind of switch it up like they did today, that's no small feat to make sure everything still went off without a hitch. So
I agree.
Yeah.
Agree. So I really have no complaints.
Yeah.
I mean, this was a really impressive win for Notre Dame.
Fun win. It was a fun win.
Good coaching, good execution, good energy level.
Right.
I mean, to see the backup offense is, they didn't look good, right? But I don't often expect them to.
I don't expect them to, yeah.
But man, there's some pads popping when the backup defense came in the game. That's the thing I like. Prince Collie he has looked more and more comfortable every single time he's got on the field.
He's gotten an opportunity to be in
every single time. He's just
he broke up a pass.
They tried to hit him on a wheel route. And he jumped. He was all over, man. I thought he was going to pick it. I thought he was going to pick it off.
It's funny. I thought it was a DB when the play was being made.
The way he played the ball.
Yes, I didn't realize that it was Prince Collie until he got up and I saw 32. I was like, okay.
Well, he played receiver in high school. That's the thing that was going to help him be that. He was a 1,000-yard receiver as a senior or as a junior. He was a 1,000-yard receiver as a junior and a 1,000-yard rusher as a senior.
He had 5 total tackles. I mean, he was 4th on the team in the tackles today.
He was all over the field.
That's pretty good.
It's really good. Really good.
We do have another super chat, Brian. Is that what you're about to say too?
Yes, sir. It was.
Spark 5219. Thank you, Spark. He goes, clear this up for me, please. A great win followed by a great show, or a great show after a great win.
I would probably
I feel like that's former. I feel like that's a compliment either way.
Yeah. Both work for me. I'd go with the former.
I'm good. Yeah. Yep. Because that way it was a great win, and I believe it was followed by a great show. So I will go with the former as well.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Thanks, Spark. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah. So yeah, good win. And here's something. This is I thought a really good response to our conversation about Drew Brees and all those other things. But the Irish for Life kind of hit the nail on the head. No Flutie is always an improvement.
Yeah.
You
It's
are
true.
spot on, my friend. Spot on.
Brian Dembo says, Vinny, rule number 1, never mention age. I did not mention age. I said a big birthday. So
Yes.
I did not mention age. And I would never, because I can get myself in plenty of trouble. I don't need help. So I would not do that.
Yep. We have a comment down here. Josh Phillips says, I don't see a 2-loss Alabama team getting in. Nobody wants to see a rematch. No way a 2-loss team only drops 1 spot. Couple things. Alabama is always looked at differently.
Yep. That's why they're number 2 right now.
But again, my argument is that to say that they're not going to get in, it depends on who are they matched up against.
Right.
Like if Alabama loses again and Oregon wins out and Cincinnati wins out and Ohio State wins out, I don't think Alabama gets in. All I'm saying is that them losing a second game doesn't eliminate them because of everything else we've talked about for the last month of the season, which is there's probably going to be a lot of 2-loss conference champions in this whole thing, right? And so that's my only point, Josh, is that I'm not saying Alabama will get in over 1-loss Ohio State or 1-loss Oregon or undefeated Cincinnati or 1-loss. I'm saying that they won't get in. They won't get in over a 1-loss. Those teams with 1 loss. I'm saying there's a chance a lot of those teams won't finish the season with just 1 loss.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the way that the SEC consistently gets overhyped by the committee, a 2-loss Alabama is going to be ranked ahead of a 2-loss Oregon or a 2-loss Ohio State or a 2-loss Notre Dame or a 1-loss Cincinnati. They just will.
Yeah.
And that's my point. But that's also why I've been adamant that a 2-loss Alabama is not getting in over a 1-loss Notre Dame. They could still get in. It just depends on what they're matched up against.
Whatever. Yeah, agreed.
Right.
One more super chat here from Kay Grant. Kay Grant says, I might, and thank you, Kay Grant, for the super chat. Really appreciate it. He says, I might be heading to Indy next weekend to watch my alma mater play for the state championship. Might go early to watch Drake Bowen play for his school before my school goes out. Go Raiders and go Irish. So Kay Grant's alma mater is Northridge, and that's the game I called last night in the freezing cold weather. And he threw a compliment at me earlier on in the chat, so I appreciate that. Or it was either Kay Grant, it was somebody else that was listening. Either way, much appreciated. I wish I was going down there. I've always wanted to call a state championship game, but it's at 3:30 on Saturday, and that's I'm going to be kind of busy on Saturday. So, but I wish it was the Friday game because I would have tried to go down. But good luck to you, sir, and your alma mater. It was fun watching their road down to the state finals.
Yeah, and I just want to bring this up again because what about those freshman Indy running backs? Future looks bright. It's almost like people look at Chris Tyree as if he's like a senior and we're going to forget about him.
Yeah, he's a soft.
No, that's not a response to what Jonathan said.
Oh, okay.
It just we don't talk,
Yeah.
For me, when I look at this group, I'm like, man, this when you look at Notre Dame, is losing Kyron Williams going to sting? Yeah, because he's really, really good.
Yeah.
But you just look at it and say, but they're going to be fine. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It just shows but this is the thing. Look, these kids are all talented, right? And running back is one of those positions where at the end of the day, I don't care how well you're coached. If you're talented, you need to be talented. You can't have a guy that's not athletic or doesn't have great vision, but he's coached real well. He's not going to be a very good running back. These kids are all incredibly talented, but the thing I love about them is they're very talented and well coached.
Right.
They are a very disciplined football team. Even like Chris Tyree had a couple blitz pickups that were really good, and just the patience that Logan Diggs showed on the screen. That's part coaching, The fact that you see Chris Tyree when he gets in space on the one kick return he had, switches the ball to the other hand, right? That's coaching.
That's coaching.
There are some coaches that don't teach that. I did. Yeah. There's just a way to do it. There's a proper way to do it.
You come over. Yeah.
Right. You work on it. It's easy to coach, but you have to rep it.
Absolutely.
But this is a really well coached. The patience. I mean, they're really well coached, but they're talented.
Mm-hmm.
And he's done a really nice job of kind of him and other coaches because again, he didn't recruit Logan Diggs. He did recruit Audric Estime. He did recruit Jadarian Price. And they got a funnel now where it's like people are able to dismiss Chris Tyree wrongly just assuming he's going to get beat out next year. No, they're all going to play, and they're going to be fun to watch.
It's going to be like 1A, 1B. Like, I don't
1C, and some games you may see Audric play more because they just want to hammer a team, and
because they do bring different
fun.
things to the table.
They do.
Those three guys bring different things to the table, and I think that might be what I love most about that room is that they are super talented, but they're all talented in kind of a unique way.
Right.
So, man, look, either way, it's going to be fun. Whoever is getting the football, whether it's 22, whether it's 24, whether it's 25.
Right. Agree. Rob did off with an interesting question down here, Vince. Do you want to kind of go through and just try to find some more good comments or questions?
Sure.
They don't have to be questions, even if they're good comments. But Rob says, Brian and Vince, I believe Ohio State is better than us, right, and would beat us on a neutral field. However, Stroud has not faced any pressure like our D would bring. Our D and a consistent offense gives us a chance. And that's a very fair analysis of that. Ohio State is a better team than Notre Dame right now. But is it the thing where like Notre Dame doesn't have a chance with the pass rush to force a couple of mistakes? Because I think he's absolutely right. Stroud hasn't been as good against good defenses. They only scored. I mean, Penn State was in that game until the fourth quarter, and they're not very good. They lost at home to Oregon convincingly. Oregon's not a great team right now. Michigan State was a bad matchup for them. Where we're going to learn about Ohio State's offense is next week, because to his point, Rob's point, this is true. His point is true now. It won't be true next week, right? Because they're going to have to go against Aiden Hutchinson and David Ojabo next week. He will have faced a pass rush like Notre Dame's next week. Now, they're not as good up the middle in the pass rush, but that's as good of a 1-2 punch off the edge as you're going to find in college football. Especially at least in the North, the very least in the North, it's as good of an edge rushing tandem as you're going to find,
right?
And so we're going to learn a lot about CJ Stroud next week. There's no question about it.
Agreed.
So, and this is the most excited I've been about an Ohio State Michigan game along. I mean, just as a connoisseur of football,
because it's been
my hatred for Michigan
beat down every year. It hasn't been a ball game.
No,
it's been boring.
Neither team's been ranked real high very often, even in, like once or twice, but then you always kind of knew Ohio State was going to win. And I mean, I'm really curious how it's going to play out. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
No doubt about it.
That's why I'm praying that that ESPN or Fox, is it Fox or ESPN has a Stanford game next week? Whoever has it, they put a hold on it. So they haven't announced the kickoff time. I'm praying it's 8 o'clock. I'm praying it's 8 o'clock.
Oh, not me.
I am because of the other games that are on next Saturday. I want to watch the Iron Bowl. I want to watch the Michigan Ohio State game.
Yeah,
you're not even going to be on the post game show anyway. I don't know why you care.
I got to do a post game show. It's not yours.
Well, that's what you get.
I'm shooting for the 4 o'clock.
That's not my problem now, is it?
No, it's not. Phil said we missed his super chat. Phil was the one that did the $17 one. There was nothing attached to it, but Phil said, where is it, Phil? I know you were here. Where are you? Oh, it was towards the bottom, and of course I missed it because I pulled up his super chat again. I thought
Please don't make that noise. It makes it so much harder to edit the thing at the end because you do that as you're trying to. It's okay to have silence.
Here it is, Phil. I knew I'd find it. Missed my super chat was saying first chat love IB and my family is from Jack Cohn's hometown. First complete game. Next stop playoffs. Go Irish.
Now that's a good first. And that's Jack Cohn's hometown. You nailed it, Vince.
Yeah, there we go. So that's a 17.
That's right. Thank you for that, Phil. Thank you for the super chat. And this was the first complete game of the year, and it was impressive.
It was great.
It was because at first, I was so annoyed by that first series, and the defense started off just so good that you're kind of like, well, Freeman's bringing it today. I wonder what the offense. But then, immediately the offense picked it up, right? But even that second series, they needed to convert a third down, they needed to convert a fourth down, but they did. And then after that, once they got to the third series, it was like, okay, it was like a hot knife through butter, man. It was. It was.
That's when I was like, well,
right, just here we go. Freeman both, man. They both brought it today
because it was very much like the offense went down and did something. The defense is like, hold on, and then they go do something, and then the offense like,
oh, okay, you want to do, exactly.
It was awesome. It was great. I'm just saying, I really enjoyed today's game. I just and that's somebody also asked during the on the board is like, is Vince going to stay for the entire game? Yeah, I can't. I don't leave games early. I can't do it. And I didn't want to leave this game. I was enjoying it too much. So yeah, I wasn't going to leave early. It was the last home game. I wait so long for these games all year, and we get like 6 of them at home, maybe 7. I'm gonna soak them up as much as possible because I know how lucky we are to be able to do what we do on a regular basis, and I want to just soak it up, because you never know when it's going to be your last one. And I've been that guy that's been taking pictures, and stuff like that because you just never know. And I love it, and there's no way I was leaving early. So, boom.
So you want to work up towards the top, Vince? I'll work from the bottom. We'll kind of work back and forth on some of these comments and things like that because there's some good ones where kind of people asking about just some football stuff. Here's one right here. Chris Ayers asked, for Notre Dame to make the playoff, doesn't Notre Dame need Ohio State to light up Michigan? No, just need to beat them. I mean, they just need whoever to win that game, and the other team's eliminated. I don't think. Because what I'm reading from that is somehow you think Michigan might be ahead of Notre Dame. If Michigan loses by a point to Ohio State, they're falling behind Notre Dame.
They're back.
I mean, they're falling behind Notre Dame.
No question.
I think if anything, you could say if Notre Dame wants to make the playoff and have a chance to win, maybe you want to face Michigan instead of Ohio State. Then you can root for Ohio State. But if Ohio State wins, the margin of victory does not matter because Michigan's going to be behind Notre Dame. So no, you. And that's the thing I said about the pathway, Vince, is why I view it to be a little bit more open than you do, is because there are so many games still left, even of teams that are ahead of Notre Dame playing each other. So one was eliminated today, and there's still at least 2 more games of teams that, there are only 2. There's 2 more games of teams ranked ahead of each other, ahead of Notre Dame that play each other. So you have to think that Notre Dame's going to move ahead of the worst case scenario for Notre Dame is if you're a Notre Dame fan, you need to be, unless Georgia Tech somehow pulls off the biggest upset in the history of college football and beats Georgia next week,
right?
Which is about what that would be. That'd be like App State beating Michigan in 2007.
Yes, it would.
But barring that, you don't want Alabama to beat Georgia because Notre Dame is not falling behind Georgia, and unless Alabama beats Georgia by like 50 or like 40, like just a blowout.
Still,
if Georgia, I'm going to say this: if Georgia gets blasted by Alabama, their resume gets looked at way different because, again, Georgia would have 0 wins over top 25 teams in the final poll.
You're assuming people are going to start looking at things objectively.
I'm talking about the committee.
So am I. And
look, what I'm saying to you is if the committee, the one thing I will say is they have really focused on wins. And that's the reason Ohio State's behind Oregon, because they don't have, like, all the other games where everywhere else, they've had the team that lost ranked behind the team that won, and they've talked about because the resume. The one exception is Oregon, Ohio State. What's the knock on Ohio State? They haven't beat anybody. Why is Ohio State not ranked ahead of Alabama? They haven't beat anybody, right? They've said that. That's the knock on Cincinnati. They haven't beat anybody. Well, Georgia's that way too. The difference is they're undefeated, and they've just killed people. What I'm saying is if Georgia gets embarrassed by Alabama, that's going to look a whole lot different because now you're going to be 0-1 against teams that finish in the top 25. That's my point. Now, do I think Georgia's not going to get in? I think they still might get in, but there's a chance. I'm not saying it's going to happen. There's a chance that Georgia would slide hard if Bama beats them. Because, again, we've never seen the committee put a team with 0 wins over a top 25 team and had a loss in the playoff. Don't believe we've ever seen it. And I don't think that would start now. And the other thing, too, is you can't really look at their schedule and say, well, who would you move in, right? Because Arkansas is out now because they did have the one over Arkansas because Arkansas jumped into the top 25 this week at number 25. Well, Arkansas is out, right? I mean, they're out now. And then you look at the rest of their schedule, okay? South Carolina's not jumping in. Only way Auburn jumps in is if they beat Bama, and then it doesn't matter because Bama's out, right? Kentucky's probably not going to jump in, maybe. But they got to play at Louisville next week. Tennessee's not jumping in. So, I mean, what are they building their resume on? So far, their resume is being built on dominance.
Yeah.
But if the only really good team they've played all year destroys them, then you could just say, well, the best team you played all year was Clemson, because Clemson's probably going to win next week over South Carolina.
So they'll be
Clemson,
8-3.
Right. They'll be 9-3. because they're 8-3 now that they beat Wake Forest.
I thought they were 7-3. Okay.
Coming into the week, they were 7-3, but now they're 8-3 because they beat
so
Wake Forest.
So they'll be 9-3,
right? And you barely beat them. You beat them by 7 points. You didn't score an offensive touchdown in that game.
They'll be 9-3. They'll be ranked at 9-3.
So then Georgia would have played 2 teams that were ranked. Bama would have destroyed them, and a 9-3 Clemson team they lost 10-3 and didn't score an offensive touchdown. I think the committee would look at that. I do. Now, would it be enough to drop them behind a 1-loss Notre Dame team? That depends.
Yeah.
But I do think the committee would – I think it would drop them behind an undefeated Cincinnati, a 1-loss Ohio State, and a 1-loss Oregon. I do. Not just losing to Bama. I'm talking about getting blasted.
Yeah,
I'm talking
just smoked.
And it has to be 30 – it has to be like it can't be like 24 and Alabama scores late to make it 24. Sure. It has to be an absolute beatdown
for
that to happen, in my opinion. But it could happen. But we'll see. But yeah, back to the question. I don't think the margin of victory next week is going to – a lot of people think Ohio State's just going to blast Michigan. And I don't necessarily disagree on that.
Because they're going to smoke them.
I don't think Michigan has the guys on the back end.
Right.
Because the thing about Ohio State is Ryan Day is really good at scheming if you have a good pass rush. He has ways to scheme to protect that. He does a pretty good job of that usually.
I'm way at the top, by the way, and I'm scrolling through every single comment, and most of it is just chatter.
So basically, Vince is telling all of y'all that none of your comments are worth
their comments about Drew Pine not getting in the game. Their comments about Wisconsin scoring, which is obviously way in the past now. Things like that.
So Steve Perry says, once again, I was happy with the defensive backs break on the ball. I like that too, Steve. I thought they did a really nice job today of they were much stickier today than they have been in coverage, Vince. And I think they broke on the ball well. Now, again, we said before the show, Georgia Tech doesn't have very good receivers. Okay, but they did what a good secondary is supposed to do against a team that doesn't have good receivers. They didn't give them any room to work.
Yep.
It's like, I don't know what you expect them to do when they play a team that sucks. It's like there's nothing you can do to give them credit. Just generally speaking, no, yeah, you can. You just evaluate how good they were and whether it translates. But I mean, when you're playing guys that aren't very good, you shut them down. I mean, Georgia Tech threw 28 passes and only had 96 yards receiving. And Notre Dame played almost the entire second half with their backups in the game. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Their backups pitched a shutout in the second half.
No, they absolutely did.
I mean, that's pretty impressive victory. Looking at it now, Vince, the only guy for Georgia Tech to finish over 10 yards per catch, they had 6 different guys catch a pass. Only one guy finished over 10 yards a catch. That was their tight end. That's pretty good.
Jimmy James has a suggestion here for you. 50 points, so 50% off Irish Breakdown caps?
No.
That was great. I thought that was funny.
That was good.
It stopped my scroll.
Good.
So
very good. Very well done. Very well done. No.
So that was great.
Yeah, I have to be careful now. Say funny things like that during the show because if I did say something like that, then there's no way this team scores 50, and if they do,
so you'd have to live up to it. Yeah,
exactly. I would not have done that if I predicted them to score 45. I'm not going to go out there and say that. Definitely not.
That's true. It's like one extra accidental touchdown, and they were over 50. I mean, if that's the way it went down, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here we go, Joe. This is a good question. Brian and Vince should be worried about Notre Dame's options at center next year. Look, I know Zeke Corral got beat out now at left guard. I still think he's a pretty good center.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Notre Dame's fine at center. I do. I'm okay with Zeke at center. I didn't watch how he did today when he got in. Not that it was mop up time, but we've seen Zeke at center. We've seen him be successful at center. I think he's more of a fit at center. So I don't think I would be worried. Brian?
I have no concerns about the talent Notre Dame will be returning on the offensive line next year at any position. My concerns about the offensive line next year have nothing to do with the players.
There you go. I can't say I disagree with that. So
Greggy Gilbert says, I say Brian and Vince should do the games. Talking about the play-by-play games.
Oh, nice.
Sean Stiers would call circles around me in calling the game. Sean is very good.
He is really good.
Very good.
I agree with that. I agree. We got a super chat at the bottom. Since you're down there, you want to grab that?
I can, yes.
Closer than I am.
Mark E. Stewart just showing up to the chat. Is Ramon Henderson legit at safety? Mark, thank you for joining and thank you for the super chat.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about that a whole lot.
Based on what he's done so far, yeah, I mean, he's looked pretty good, pretty comfortable. The only hesitation I have, Mark, is that Virginia had no film on him at safety.
Sure.
And Georgia Tech had no one that could challenge him. Right. So if I'm being devil's advocate, I'm not ready to anoint him as the replacement for Kyle Hamilton just yet. Having said that, of being able to evaluate on just what we've seen, he looked comfortable today again. He showed really good range, and he's more physical as a safety than he is as a corner. That's the other thing. He's more willing to hit and be physical there than he was at corner. So far, so good, Mark, is about all I can say, because again, it's just 2 games against 2 teams that had backup quarterbacks and one team had no film on him, right? Yeah. And the other team has no receivers that should scare him. But I'll just say, like I said earlier in the week, Mark, I feel a lot better about the future of the safety position now than I did before. So we'll see. We'll see kind of how that changes.
Paul's got a super chat down there if you want to grab that one. There's a couple actually now. Paul, thanks for the super chat, man. He says the weather was not bad today, Vince. Too bad Brian's too soft for games in November.
Man, I spent a whole career dealing with that nonsense, right? I don't have to now. Plus, Paul,
you're not wrong.
I spent my morning, instead of being at a tailgate, I spent my morning shopping for homeless shelters, buying food for home. I'm going to pull the guilt card out now for Paul because that's my guy, right? So, and if I was going to be at the tailgate, I was going to go to the game, okay? Which means the 2 tickets I gave to you today, you would not have been able to use. So,
that's great.
How you like them apples?
Oh,
sorry, I watched Good Will Hunting the other day, so that's why how you like them apples? It's fresh on my mind. We got a couple more super chats have just popped up here. We thank everybody. Garen Knutson 1234. I like that super chat. $12.34. 1234. Thank you, Garen. What seniors would you like to see return if eligible, and who is going to make the most out of another year? I would like to see everyone with eligibility come back. Could you imagine Notre Dame next year if everyone but Kyle Hamilton came back? That couldn't. If Kyron came back and Patterson came back and Foskey came back, Adam Yola came back. I think right now of those guys, I'm most confident that Jason Adamiola comes back.
Okay,
that's what I'm most confident in. I think for whatever reason, talking to some NFL people, he's not getting the love that I thought he'd be getting. Mm-hmm. And I talked to somebody earlier this week who told me a buddy of mine in the scouting business said he's hearing 5th round for him.
Ooh,
I think that's nuts.
Come back,
but that would be great for Notre Dame. Great for Notre Dame.
Come back.
Because he has been really good this year. But in their defense, his production hasn't been nasty. So what I'm curious about is how are teams going to view Jason after the year when they have a chance to go back and actually
watch his
film more at him.
Yeah.
But my hope is that he chooses to come back, because I think another year in the weight room, another year of production, another year in Freeman's defense and he's going to be the captain. I mean, I think Jason could be a captain next year. And I think that could help too. He's already kind of showing, in my opinion, and some things I've heard from some different sources, he's already kind of showing some leadership and those kind of things. But, he's one that I think could come back. But, who would I like to see? I'd like to see all the receivers come back. I mean,
because their numbers are low. And I do not want to see Notre Dame go shopping in the transfer portal for receivers. Because
I just bring everybody back.
It's not worked out well for Notre Dame. But if Austin and Lindsey and Davis come back, that'd be great.
In all seriousness, though, I don't think Kyron should come back. If I was I say that
either.
Selfishly as a Notre Dame person. Oh, I'd love to see Kyron. But no, for Kyron, no. He's got nothing else to prove. He needs to, running backs have a shelf life, and he's touched the ball a lot the last 2 years.
Yes.
I don't know what else he can prove. And running
backs and Kyron are the 2 guys that I would be like, guys, you got to go.
Yeah, and you need to go.
It is what it is. And then a year from now, I'm telling the same thing to Michael Mayer.
Right.
But again,
because barring the crazy bad regression or an injury or something like that. But I'd love to see Avery Davis come back. As long as they're committed to still playing Lorenzo and Dion and
And they don't
Tobias and CJ,
right.
you know what I mean? Still play the young guys. Don't bring him back at the expense of, well, now Lorenzo's not playing a lot. Dion's not playing.
Go 6 deep.
Right.
Like
Tobias Merriweather's not playing, as long as you're still choosing to play those guys.
Because Joe Wilkins is probably going to come back as well. I mean,
that's the one. That's the one that would be if Kevin, Braden, and Avery all came back. I don't think you can bring all 4 of them back.
Okay.
Because then it's like, well,
just from a scholarship standpoint.
But then it's like, okay, well, you're going to bring Joe back to not play him?
Right.
At that point in time, I feel like, hey, Joe, maybe you need to go play somewhere else. Which I'm just because I don't want him. I love Joe Wilkins. It's a great story, but I don't want a Joe Wilkins coming off a knee injury playing over Tobias Merriweather.
I agree.
Or Deion Colsey, or Lorenzo Styles, or even Jaden Thomas.
Yeah.
Or CJ Williams. That's my thing. And I also don't want Joe Wilkins sitting the bench. I want to see that kid get a chance to play.
Yeah. Yeah. And he could be a number 1 at a lot of places.
Right.
Right.
Like we're not talking like Georgia Tech or, but yeah, I mean, right. Exactly. Yes. South Florida, something like that. Right.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. Yes, absolutely. David Solomon.
Utah is now up 14-0, by the way.
I've been watching. David Solomon says next week at Stanford won't be easy like today was. I know the record isn't any better than Georgia Tech, but they did manage to beat Oregon at home.
First of all, Stanford's terrible. Okay.
Really bad.
That's like saying Syracuse in 2017 was dangerous because they beat Syracuse or Clemson at home. That was a fluky game that had some really traumatic things that you can't replicate, meaning I think it was the night before the game or the day of the game after they had already flown to Stanford. Joe Moorhead had to get rushed into an emergency surgery, couldn't call the game. That was a fluky, weird situation that can't be replicated. Plus, Stanford's down a lot of players since then. This isn't the same Stanford team.
I haven't started.
Stanford has not won a game since they beat Oregon. literally, they're 0-5 since they beat Oregon, and I believe they're losing to Cal tonight, 14-0. Right now,
they were last time I checked. It was 14-0. But I don't have it up in front of me.
If that game next week is not easy, then everything good I say about the team now, it's 14-3 at half. Everything I said good about the team now, take back because it would be bad. Stanford is awful. That was a fluky. They're 3-7 for a reason. Yeah.
Melvin Whitney, my only criticisms, 1, boy, do I want an offense that looks like Ohio State's. Imagine that offense with our defense. And 2, Cone underthrows. Too many again. He's stepped up under crazy pressure this year. Kudos. So it's like a backhanded compliment.
I can only think of one throw that was somewhat underthrown. That was the throw to Kevin Austin. In the go route he threw to Braden Lindsey was absolutely right on the money. Hit him right over the shoulder.
Right.
Like Drew Brees was like, it was a little bit underthrown. I'm like, hit him right here.
Right.
Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then the throw to Mayer, he put it on him. That's why it would look behind. That's what you do. When a guy's wide open like that, you put it on him. You don't lead him. You put it on him. That's what you teach a quarterback to do.
Right.
If a guy's wide open, you don't lead him. You throw it right at him so he can catch and run. So I don't know if I would necessarily agree with that. And again, he did say, I mean, I guess only criticisms. I mean, I'm not going to be too critical of a guy that went 15 of 20 and threw for 285 yards in 2 quarters of football.
Yeah. I mean,
if that's not good enough for you, Melvin, I don't know what to tell you, my man.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know what to tell you.
He was crazy efficient today.
Yeah.
I mean, he just was.
I just kind of feel like people that don't think he should be the quarterback are going to take every throw that's not right on the money and be like, "Oh, see, there we go again." Where if it's a guy you like if you're like, "Man, I wish Caleb Williams would transfer to Notre Dame," you ignore all those passes that he makes and only focus on, did you see the one great play you had, or did you see the one great play you had? I mean. It's just part of the game.
Zachary Ryan says Lawrence Keys is back with Chip Long at Tulane.
He committed today to Tulane.
Oh, good for him.
I'm very happy about that. That's where I wanted him to go. That's where I'd hoped he would go. And
that's awesome.
And that's
not a situation where he's like eligible now, right? He has to wait till next year, or
I mean, their season's over in a week anyway. But yeah, once you start a season and transfer, you have to sit out that season.
I don't know what the crazy rules were these days. Like if they,
Yeah, but I believe Lawrence transfers in December or graduates in December. But the thing is, he's going to know the offense. It's Chip's offense.
Yes,
and he's going to play for coach that recruited him to Notre Dame.
Yeah, good point.
And so now again, Mike Denbrock originally recruited him. No, that's Michael Young. No, Chip recruited Lawrence Keys because he was in the 2018 class.
Yeah,
I was thinking Michael Young Yeah, Chip recruited him, so he's going to go somewhere that the coach knows him and wants him, and
that's a huge get.
Thinks he can play, and that's good for Lawrence. And he gets to go back home. He's from New Orleans.
Oh, okay.
So that's obviously a big part too. So I'm ecstatic that that's the decision he made. I think far too many times these kids get in these situations where they just get so obsessed with playing at a Power 5 school that they just make bad decisions and go to places. So anyway, sorry, I'm just shooting a little.
That's all right.
Text message here.
The troops have arrived at my house.
Okay. So all right. So we have any more super chats, Vince? Because we'll here we go. Dennis Rydell says
oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Super chat. Thank you for that. Does Lindsey return for one more year? I have mixed feelings on him. I'm just gonna say in the last couple of weeks, as they've started to use him differently, we're starting to see him be more and more effective. And I think there's another level to now he could take some shots with him downfield, but this is how Lindsey should be. He's a complement. He's a big play complementary weapon, and there's no reason not to bring him back, especially since I think Braden's perfectly fine only playing 30 snaps a game.
Yeah,
as long as he's getting his touches, I don't think he wants to. I'm not saying this in a negative.
It's a perfect way to use him and his skill set. And look, Braden's made some big throws. Like he's made some first down catches. Yeah. He's made some first down catches that have been absolutely huge at the time that they were made. And so I think he's actually stepped up. He's not just to take the top off the defense guy. He's made, the crosser today for a first down. He had a big first down catch. He had 2 big first down catches in a game earlier this year. So I think he's starting to become more of a receiver, which I think is huge for him. And I think it's huge for Notre Dame.
And it's partly because they're using him on some of those other things, and that gets him going.
I think it's great. And I would like to see him back.
Yeah, he had the 14-yard jet against Navy, and then he has the 31-yard reverse against Virginia. He has a 12-yard gain on a jet today. Yeah, I mean, I think there's even more, and he has a 4th and 2 conversion today on a 9-yard gain. Converts a 4th and 2 because he just outran a guy on a crossing route. Like, there's no reason not to bring him back.
Exactly,
because the difference between him and maybe some other guys is Braden is perfectly fine playing 30 plays a game, and it's an ideal. And this is what we said in the offseason. Even when we thought Braden was going to be one of the guys, he's not a guy that you want playing every series. You don't want to play in 50, 60 snaps. So it's an ideal situation when you're in an offense where you want to be working guys into the field. That's a perfect situation because you're not going to play him 60 snaps a game, and he's not going to necessarily want or need 60 snaps a game. It's perfect. Absolutely perfect. David Mena says we need a 6'5" receiver. You are correct. His name's Tobias Merriweather. He'll be here in January.
I've never heard anybody request that's all Notre Dame's ever had.
I know, right? And they don't have any. That's the funny thing is, right? Yeah. Like they went from that's all they ever had to now they don't have any.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious. Yeah. Kay Grant's got another super chat down here. Thank you again, Kay Grant. He goes, imagine if Notre Dame makes the playoffs. The outcry would be insane, and the 13th data point would be trending on Twitter. Look, every time Notre Dame makes the playoff, that's all we ever hear.
Which I love.
That's the talking point.
Yeah.
Right? And it's ridiculous. So
here's what I got to respond to this, Vince. David Mena also says 6'5" receiver and Mayer threat. We are a top 3 team next year. Skinny 6'1" doesn't get it done. I have 4 words for you. I'm just going to use 4 words.
The Ohio State University?
No.
Oh, okay.
Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave.
Okay.
4 words.
There you go. I was
First of all, I don't say the Ohio State University because it's the. The is THEE. That is the dumbest thing ever.
First of all, I don't disagree with you, but I was trying to come up with 4 words.
Yes.
That had to do with
the
Ohio
idiots
State.
at Ohio. The is literally spelled. There's a word for the. It's THEE. Your name is the Ohio State University. Okay, it's the Ohio State University. But yes, they have shown that you can have plenty of 6'1" receivers and be a pretty good offense because, what was that school last year that had those 2 6'1" receivers? Oh, they wore like kind of like maroonish, like a scarlet, like a crimson kind of. They're crimson something. Man, what the heck is the name of that team? The one guy, he won like some kind of award, something. I think it's called like the Heisman Trophy.
It goes like this.
David, we're just kind of having some fun with you, man. I'm just giving you a hard time. But look, there was this type of. So Chris Olave is 6'1", 189. Garrett Wilson is 6 foot 188. Jackson Smith in Najigba is 6 foot 197. And there's not a better passing offense in the country right now than Alabama.
Right.
You look last year at Alabama. Than Ohio State. Last year at Alabama, there wasn't a better team that threw the football last year than Alabama. And their best receiver was 6'1", 160 pounds. Their number 2 receiver, John Mechie, was 6 foot. Their number 2 receiver, when healthy, was 5'10", Jalen Waddle. And then, Devontae Smith was their tallest receiver last year at 6'1", right?
Yep.
So I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that. Oh, and there was this who was that team in 2019 that was really good? They had that Joe Burrow guy at quarterback.
Oh, what was that? They're Tigers, right? Go Tigers.
Yeah, go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
What was the dude that had 1,700 yards and 20 touchdowns? Jamar Chase. He was
6'1".
There you go.
Bam. Got lucky on that one. Paul Olmstead's firing back at you. He goes, LOL, thanks, Brian, for the time and shopping today. You rock, and thanks for the tickets. Took a special young man to his first Notre Dame game.
That's not firing back at me. That's being complimentary. Vince,
but it was
trying to start
back.
stuff.
Yeah,
Vince is trying to start stuff.
That's what I do.
Look at you.
That's what I do. I'm the oldest child. All right, Matt Sheets, thanks for the super chat
for
Matt.
that. Yep,
appreciate that.
Here's one, Vince. I got Josh Phillips asked, "Do you see the committee putting Michigan over Cincinnati if Oregon loses tonight at the 4 spot?" No, I think the way that Cincinnati handled, the way that they handled SMU today, that's an 8-2 team. They're going to jump them. That if they did that and they put Ohio State or Michigan ahead of Cincinnati, it's just this committee saying we're not going to put Cincinnati in.
Right.
Sorry.
Absolutely.
Because then that would be bad. And honestly, they shouldn't be ahead of Cincinnati. Look, who has a better win right now, Cincinnati or Michigan?
Right.
The answer's Cincinnati.
Yes.
Right.
Agreed.
What's the next best win for Michigan? It's Wisconsin's a pretty good one, right? But I don't think that's enough where you negate the fact that they blew a 30-14 lead to Michigan State. So yeah, I don't think that they would do that. But if they do, I'm going to just flat out say this is the worst committee that we've ever seen for this. I'm serious.
But they're trending in that direction, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think this committee has done a terrible job overall. Now, maybe they get it right in the end. Maybe they get it right in the end.
And that's ultimately all that matters.
Yeah, Tim Priester, when we had him on Wednesday, he's like, look, there's been 28 Final Four teams. He goes, I've agreed with all 28 of them.
I said the only one I didn't agree with won the championship that year. Because how they leaped Ohio State over TCU when TCU beat Iowa State 55-3 in their last game was kind of like, come on, you know what I mean? Like, why didn't you do that last week?
Right.
But they proved that, they proved that wasn't a terrible thing because that team went out and won it all that year. So it ended up being a good decision. So anyway, and here's Jonathan Gabrick. Rondale Moore beat Ohio State on his own at 5'9", put up like 250 yards that game. Yeah. So, look, again, it's not so much the size of guys. It's just how you use them. It's just how are you going to utilize them? If you're going to have shorter guys, use them correctly. And I think that was more of the issue this year than the size of Notre Dame's receivers.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Oregon is getting worked tonight.
And it's glorious. I did call for that upset. Didn't get the other one.
So that Notre Dame's going to at least move up to 6 this week.
Yeah.
And I say at least. I don't see them jumping up any higher than that. I don't think they would jump up any higher than that. All right, Vince. So, hey, I think that's going to do it. Because I think we've kind of touched it all. We will be back tomorrow. But, hey, like button, smash it. Subscribe button, make sure you've hit it. Notification bell, definitely want to turn that on because you're going to know when we're going to do our next show, which is going to be tomorrow night around 8:00. Right? Yeah. We're going to break down the film. We're going to talk. So I'm calling it now, Vince. So just be prepared for it. We're going to talk a little bit about the game, the Notre Dame Georgia Tech game. We're going to talk a little bit about that, just some things we see. Yeah. But then after that, it's going to be college football playoff stuff
because it's going to be fun to talk about.
Yeah. So hey, because here's how the show is going to basically go for 10 minutes. Hey, remember all that great stuff we talked about last night? It was still freaking great.
Still that way,
right? So we'll talk. But I wanted to dive into the film because there's a couple. Here's what we are going to talk about. One thing that Vince and I didn't get a chance to really spend a lot of time on watching the younger guys. I
Yeah.
definitely want to watch the second half again, watch some of the younger players, see how they did. I want to talk about how Rocco played and how Prince Collie
Yeah.
played and how
Yeah.
Aiden
That's what I'm going
Keanu
to focus
got in
on
the
when those
game.
guys
Like,
get
I'm going to
in.
do
Yeah.
some of that stuff.
Right.
And then that's what we're going to spend a lot of time. So there'll be a couple comments here and there. I may go back and watch the game like, wow, there was 2 times they turned the guy loose and I didn't see it live, right? You know, there's always stuff like that. But for the most part, we'll talk some about that stuff. But then we'll also talk about some of the younger guys, and we'll do that maybe for about 20 minutes or so. And then after that, we're going to talk about college football playoff, just preview, like talk about what happened today, preview what we think is going to happen on Tuesday, and then answer some of your questions. So that's what we'll do tomorrow night. So that's what we're going to do. So again, like button, subscribe button, notification bell, sign up for the message boards. Absolutely. Listen to podcasts, 5-star review, and enjoy the rest of your night. Have a great. Actually, we just had a couple come in real quick that I want to get to. Dennis Rydell said, "Sorry, missed you guys on Wednesday. Thank you for this, Dennis. Had to work. Well done. Go Irish." Thank you for that, Dennis. And the Connor Patton, thank you for your super chat as well. Glad to see the show growing. It would be great to see both the program and this show go to the next level. I agree completely, and I think those 2 things would go hand in hand. I believe so. I think that's a great comment. We appreciate all of y'all very much, and we're gonna have a good night. Why is Tommy Guns telling us we can't go yet? Did he have a super chat that we didn't get to or something?
No, I think he just doesn't want us to leave.
Doesn't want us to leave.
I think that's really all there is.
But that's why you have. That's what the message board is for, right?
Yeah,
like we're gonna still be
right.
talking. Well, I'll still be talking on the message board. Vince has 5 little chitlins he needs to go round up upstairs.
I can hear him jumping around up there,
but I'm going to be on the message board the rest of the night. So appreciate everybody being here with us tonight. Have a great rest of your night. Enjoy the football that's still being played, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.